Good evening, everyone. By my clock, we're at 6:30, and I believe we're ready to start. We have quorum. I don't believe we have everyone yet. Oh, yes, we do. We have all of our panel members. Excellent, excellent. Okay, so again, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this online hearing of the Committee of Adjustment for the City of Ottawa. Bienvenue à tous à cette rencontre en ligne du Comité de dérogation pour la Ville d'Ottawa. Before I begin, a couple of things that we need to note. First, Committee of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial tribunal that's essentially appointed by City Council to make decisions on certain types of development applications under the Planning Act, which include, for the most part, minor variances and consent applications, but we do deal with increasingly with permission applications and with long-term leases, that kind of thing. So my name is Anne Tremblay, and I'm the chair of the hearing for this evening. And with me tonight are my fellow panelists, Mr. Scott Hindle, Ms. Kathleen Willis, Ms. Julia Markovich, and Mr. Colin White. Also with us tonight, and all of this would not be possible with our wonderful committee staff. So I'd like you to say hello to our Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Michel Belmont.
Hello.
We also have Ms. Emily Manette, who is a coordinator, Ms. Maddie Nguyen, and Ms. Maddie Harriman Fernandez. All right, so with that, do take note that this session this hearing is being video conferenced and live streamed on YouTube. And if you would like to get either a copy of this going forward or a copy of the agenda, you can do that just by going straight to the Committee of Adjustments web pages on the city's web site. And if you need any help with that, of course, committee staff can always help you out. So the issues surrounding development in the city are quite broad, but the Committee of Adjustment actually has a very narrow set of sort of jurisdiction for us to deal with. So the things that we really cannot entertain as part of our decisions and discussion are any aspects of the proposal that really has nothing to do with the applications that are before us. So we're pretty much bound to dealing with the nature of the application that is before us. So if building height is not being requested for relief, that's because the proposal is in keeping with the provisions of the zoning bylaw. And if that's the case, then there's nothing we can do about the building height. Also, we don't talk about noise pollution or property maintenance or property values. We deal with the 4 tests under the Planning Act in order to make decisions. We deal with every application as if no construction has occurred. So prosecution for illegal construction is not an issue for us. It's not something we can discuss. Personal comments about neighbors, applicants, agents, community members, we have zero tolerance for that. So please keep it courteous and polite and show respect to everyone who is participating in the hearing. Finally, if we find that there are any additional variances that are required, and I mean any additional variance that's not essentially, in this case tonight, we have a case where there is less relief required. Those kinds of things we can change without having to recirculate. But if there's a new variance that's required, then we do have to, as part of the public process, go back out and circulate the notice to add that minor variance. It's essentially a restart of the process. With that, as part of the statutory declaration requirements, each applicant is supposed to post a sign on the property to which the application applies, and then provide to the committee a statutory declaration that confirms that in fact that sign has been erected on file in keeping with the regulations of the Planning Act. And I believe in this case, we are going to be doing, so since we've been online, we've been doing this essentially through a solemn oath or affirmation. And I believe I will be doing that essentially for all of the applications this evening. Also, if we lose quorum for whatever reason, we will try and reestablish that quorum. And if we can't, we're 5 this evening, so chances are probably pretty slim that we're going to lose quorum tends to be a little riskier if there's only 3 of us. But in this case, if that happens, I do know we'll do our best to reestablish a quorum. And if we can't, any items that haven't been dealt with, we'll go to the very next meeting of the committee. So with regards to the hearing process, so you saw at the beginning that there's an agenda. That was the order of the applications that are there, not necessarily the order in which they will be heard. So we do a bit of a triage through our pre-meets to look at which applications may need a full presentation, and which ones we can essentially fast track, because we do have a chance to look at all the material before we even come into this hearing. We have a very good idea about what the application is about. But are able to categorize applications as being those that we can fast track, or that we want a full presentation on. So if we do either way, we'll get the applicant or the agent to do the presentation. But after that, what the committee does is ask of that applicant or agent whether or not they did a presentation, any clarifying questions. So for any reason there's information that we reviewed prior to the hearing that seems to be a little confusing maybe, or could benefit from some clarity, that's our opportunity to get that from the applicant. Once we've done that, we can open it up to the public. So we do the public portion of the hearing on that particular application. And at that point, I will go to the speakers list first. And then if there's no one, well, regardless of whether somebody on the speakers list or not, I'll then open it up to anyone. And if you do want to, if you're not on the list, it's okay, you can come forward. All you need to do is to raise your hand or in any way, just signal to us that you would like to speak, and the coordinator can bring you in order to address the committee. The committeeman might then ask you questions about your comments, just so that we understand really the nature of your concerns. Especially if you haven't submitted anything to us, in that case, it's really our only opportunity to really understand what it is that you have as concerns. So we might do that with you. Once all that is done, we close the public portion of the hearing, and then the committee members have a chance to deliberate on the application. And with that takes us to the decision portion. So the committee can obviously make an oral decision either to grant the application, to refuse the application, or sometimes we can also reserve the application. And that happens when we have a controversial application before us. And normally it's consent and minor variance tied together. And if we get a lot of new evidence that's brought forward from the public, who, whether or not they've registered to speak, bring that information forward, then we may decide that it's better for us to reserve so that we have a little more time after the full hearing is adjourned to reconvene before the end of the evening and have that discussion and then make a decision. All that to say, decisions on the applications that are heard happens this evening. Written decisions, however, are then issued within 10 days of the hearing. And that it's a formal decision that includes all of the rationale or reasoning for the committee's decision. And then those decisions are subject to a 20-day appeal period where anyone who has an interest in the application can appeal the decision of the committee to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So with that, I'm just going to go to items of business. We don't have too much. I need to hear from anyone on the panel if you have a conflict of interest with any of the items that are on our agenda or any of the other agendas before the other panel. So Mr. White, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I must declare interest on item that was dealt with by panel 3, item 9 on their agenda for 8015 Russell Road. I did do some preliminary investigative planning work on that file for the agent on the application. So I'm declaring interest on that item.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else? Not seeing any hands? Okay. We do not have any minutes to approve this evening. So I think we're going to go directly to the next order before we get into hearing applications, which is the adjournments. And we have a number this evening to get through. So starting with application number 1. So application number 1, I believe I'm looking for the agent, who would be Barrett Wagner. And anyone, I have other names, Astrid Nielsen and Gaetano Idani. So everyone can come forward.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. This is Barrett Wager, the planning consultant here on behalf of the client.
Okay, so Mr. Wagner, you are aware that you in fact have made the request for adjournment?
Correct, yes. There's essentially, we reached out to city staff in advance once we received the report on Friday. There were some conditions that we discussed on Monday, and we feel that we can address some of them so that they no longer need to be actual conditions when we come back to the committee. Today wouldn't have been provided enough time to do that, so we're looking at the next available date. I believe that's January 12th.
We do have January 12th as the next date. I will warn you, though, Mr. Wager, that in fact, that meeting is pretty full, so it's going to be a long night. If you want to go with that one, that's fine, but I'm just warning you that it's.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely go with January 12th if there is space for us, please.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on the adjournment? Anything? Okay. Members of the public, you do have an opportunity to speak to this adjournment request. So is there anyone out there who wants to speak either for or against the proposal to adjourn this application to January 12th? And I am not seeing any hands at all. So with that then, committee, all those in favor of the adjournment to January 12th? All right, so Mr. Wager, the decision is unanimous by the committee, and we will see you after the holidays.
Thank you. I've also got item number 2. I don't know if things are getting shuffled around.
Okay, well, let's item number 2. No, sorry, I'm doing the adjournments first, so you have to go back.
Yes.
Okay. No problem. No problem. Okay, and with that, application number 3 is the next one, and I think I'm looking for Eli Ronan, yes, as the agent for the applicant. So Ronan.
Madam Chair, Mr. Ronan does not appear to be online.
All right, is there a way to maybe we'll step this down to the end of the adjournments. Is there a way for to maybe message Mr. Ronan and see where he is?
Yes, I'll get in contact with him now.
All right, thank you very much, Ms. Manette. All right, that takes us to application number 4, and I'm looking for Mr. Cursipue. Mr. Cursipue.
Unmute. Hello?
Hello, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Okay, start video as well. There we go.
There you go. Good evening, Mr. Cursipue. Hey. All right, so in this case, bit of a story, I think, eh?
Oh.
So, yes, so my understanding, staff is requesting this adjournment. You're aware of that, correct?
I was under the issue comes down to what I believe is a technical variance in this particular case, because the zoning bylaw that refers to this particular issue has changed from the time our building permit was issued until the review for this minor variance of a different matter. So we're not in compliance with it, but we are in compliance with the building permit approval and the plans therefore in building on that basis. So I would find it difficult to have to adjourn when we are in compliance with the plans that were approved, that we're building to, but during that time, the clause for the front yard garage, apparently, our permit was issued in May, so it's not that long ago. During that period of time, the definition has changed, and therefore the planner for the committee here has picked it up as if we're in deficient of that now.
All right, so Ms. Cully, I'm going to ask you to come forward. We need to have a little bit of a discussion on this. All right, so Ms. Cully, do you want to explain to us then why you see this as requiring an adjournment?
Through you, Madam Chair, we didn't request an adjournment specifically. We just flagged the additional minor variance required.
So what is required then, Ms. Cully?
So in this case, the garage is projecting closer to the front lot line than is permitted. You can only have the garage a distance projecting 0.6 meters to the front lot line. Then is the principal entrance to the dwelling. So the difference between the two, the principal entrance cannot be more than 0.6 from the garage is to the front yard setback. It's a little bit confusing, but essentially there is a deficiency of 0.68 and a 0.7. So the garages are set forward that 0.7 and 0.68 when they can only be 0.6.
All right, so here's the issue I'm having. If Mr. Cursapue's plans were in alignment with what the zoning bylaw requirement was back at the time that the building permit was issued, why are we here? I'm trying to figure out why we're here then, because it would have been the provisions in effect at the time of the application.
Mr. Cursipue might be able to explain the actual situation that happened with the building permit stage of it all. But my understanding is that the foundation was the rear yard setback. That was the amount of space between the foundation and the rear lot line. However, the siding has made it so that there is a reduction in that rear yard setback. So the rear yard setback was measured to the foundation, not to the siding of the building.
All right, so Mr. Cursipue, can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, but that's the variance we're applying for. The variance that's been picked up here refers to the front and the garage, which the zoning bylaw, as I understand it, from speaking to Ali Mann about it, has changed from the time our building permit was issued. We're not in contravention of the garage setback to the approved site plan that we received with our building permit approval.
Through you, Madam Chair, I was just trying to answer your question about why the application was here.
Okay, but I guess so to the point though, I thought it was this whole garage issue that was creating the requirement for the minor variance. Can you tell us about that then, notwithstanding what's happening in the rear yard?
So the application itself was requesting a reduced rear yard setback for both of the dwelling units. The garage setback was identified during review and was presented to the committee if it is indeed needed to be an additional minor variance.
I see, because there's a requirement for this reduced rear yard setback. It triggered then a reopening of it and a review under the new rules. And if it's under the new rules, now you're telling me, now you got a problem with the garage. Have I understood that that's the rationale here? Lots of questions from the panel. I just want to make sure that we have the basis first, and then we'll go into discussion. But that's right? Yeah, okay.
That's correct.
Mr. White, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would suggest that there's a very strong argument that the reason given for, well, I'm not sure someone asking for the adjournment, but in any case, the reason adjournment's being considered is because of the fact that someone has discovered the encroachment with respect to the garage, that the problem the bylaw developed after the building permit was issued. In other words, the building permit was legitimately issued for that aspect of this development. The only thing that we are dealing with in terms of a minor variance here is as a result of, as I understand it, some building materials that were added to the wall of the building, which has the effect of bringing it closer to the rear lot line and the rear setback problem that we have. Frankly, it would be my position on the other issue, the garage encroachment, that there is essentially a legal non-conforming right because the permit was issued legitimately and conformed at the time. When the building conformed at the time, the plans conformed at the time with respect to that aspect when the permit was issued. So I would suggest that it would be appropriate for us to deal with the applications that we have here with respect to the rear yard setbacks And the problem of the garage encroachment is not a problem because permits were issued for the building at the time conformed to the bylaw.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. I think that's a very reasonable argument. Okay, I want to hear from the others. Ms. Willis.
Actually, well said, Mr. White. I much more eloquently than I would have tried to say the same thing, basically, that, and I'm wondering from Ms. Cully's perspective that if we decide not to deal with the additional, what are called variances, what were not variances at the time of issuance of the permit because the bylaw changed, what happens? Is there anything that would, he's got his building permit when assuming if he gets this variance, it's going to be fine. What might get caught up as a result of not dealing with the other issue?
Through you, Madam Chair, when I discussed it with the zoning plans examiner, it was preferred that the variance was applied for so that compliance was across the board on the entire building. Beyond that, there was no indication that it would hold up any building permit or anything like that. Nothing like that was discussed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Hindle, Ms. Markovich, any comments?
No, I would tend to agree with Mr. White and Ms. Willis that it seems like if it's all as described that we're in a legal non-conforming situation, that I'm comfortable just leaving it at that and we can move forward with the rest of the application this evening.
All right, Ms. Markovich, any comments?
I would just echo that. I'm comfortable moving forward, and yeah.
In which case, I think what I'm hearing, Mr. Cursipew, is we're going to hear your application. So we're going to step this down.
Can I perhaps suggest that I don't want this to go to the next hearing, obviously, to be circulated, so on and so forth, but could we grant the 2 minor variances to the garage setback to ensure that, you know, we're on board and it's a technical matter only?
No, because that would become then, no, because either you accept that you're reviewing the entire site plan again, now under the new rules, or you simply, yeah. So I would suggest.
I just don't want to be in another situation, you know, 3 weeks from now when we're severing the lot that this rears its ugly head. But I understand if you're in agreement, I appreciate that.
The other option, Mr. Cursipew, is my understanding is there is still time to get this circulated and onto the January 12th hearing. If you really wanted to be absolutely sure, you do have that option, but you would have to get the material in very quickly.
I would prefer to go with the legal non-conforming because quite frankly, it just doesn't make any sense to me from day one that you know, the rules would change and consequently during construction we'd have to revise everything to adapt to new rules after starting. So I'm happy with that. If we just deal with the other variants for the rear yard, that would be perfect.
I think the members agreed. So, and because your application number 4, it won't be that long before we're back to you then, Mr. Cursipew.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so the next one we're dealing with then is application number 6, looking for Andrea Bushbaum. Ms. Bushbaum, I think. Okay.
Good afternoon. This is Andrea Bushbaum. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
I'm not sure why my video is not working. Let me just check. Because I'm not sure. Give me a sec.
Ah, there.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. No worries. Oh, we're also, you know, it's been a year and a half or almost 2 years, but some of us are still getting used to this. So, and it seems every system is a little bit different. So with that, Ms. Bushbaum, you are aware that staff has requested an adjournment on your application?
Yes, I am aware. We were notified last week about that. We requested two minor variances. One is for the front yard and the other one is for the, for the floor space index and the side yard. We are adding a garage on the backyard of this property, and that was the extent of our work. It's only 26 square meters that we are adding to this house. The owner purchased the house, and we were notified on Friday that a minor variance was required with regards to a driveway in the front yard. The driveway was existing when my client purchased the property. He purchased the property in 2019, and apparently this was done between 2009 and 2011. So we just requested the two minor variances. So we were not very clear why we were requesting the third one and establish a legal non-conforming rights to something that was there before we started the project. It was there. We did not touch it at all. It's only a small...
All right. So I guess at this point, I'd like to hear from Ms. Ramirez. I believe it's Ms. Ramirez on this application. Yes. We need to establish that it is in fact a legal non-conforming. So Ms. Ramirez, need to hear from you, please, on your reasons for requesting an adjournment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through the landscape plan, the areas of soft landscaping are changing. Staff appreciate the introduction of the soft landscaping area that is proposed. There's one part that is getting smaller, and staff, when reviewing the landscape plan, realized that a new minor variance is required to permit the expansion of that driveway into that soft landscaping area. And when I discussed it with the senior planner in the file, because there was that expansion between 2009 and 2011, we're not sure how much of that driveway is legal non-complying and how much of it was done outside of the planning process. So that's why staff is recommending that application be submitted to establish legal non-compliant rights so we can understand what's the actual full extent of relief that is required.
All right. So in other words, Ms. Bushbaum, before speaking with Ms. Ramirez, I indicated that it was important to identify whether or not legal non-conforming rights actually exist for that driveway. And it would appear that it's not possible to really distinguish between what might have been prior to 2009, I guess it was. Did we say 2009, 2011? And then what was added to. And now with the proposal that yet again there be another addition to the driveway, that gives us the opportunity.
I'm sorry to cut you off. We are not doing any addition to the driveway. We added some softscape as it was required during the process, but we are not touching the front driveway at all. Nothing. We just they requested additional soft plants, and then this is what we have added. That's all.
All right. Am I misunderstanding that, Ms. Ramirez? Did you say that we're doing both, I thought?
So the applicant is introducing soft landscaping to the front yard, but there's a large portion that is, I believe it's 26 square meters, that is being reduced, and the pavers are being extended into that area. So they are expanding that hard landscaping.
So the hard landscaping, is it and I don't have the site plan, but is it abutting the driveway now?
The expansion of the hard landscaping, yes.
But it was, as I said, it was there when we started the project, and we have it's not part of the scope of work. We presented the landscape plan. The addition the variance that we have requested was for the side yard and the floor square index, but that was as I explained during the process, or when this came abroad, we did not touch absolutely anything on the front yard. The owner purchased the property with the understanding that he was purchasing a legal property that was vetoed through the authorities. So it was a surprise that the minor variance was required at the last minute for the front yard.
All right. I would like to hear from committee members. Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm not clear. Maybe someone can answer this question. I'm not clear if the proposed work on the driveway at the front is increasing the potential non-compliance of that area, the driveway area, to the bylaw requirements? What is the situation?
Ms. Ramirez, I guess.
Are we increasing the bylaw problem here with whatever is proposed to be done in the front yard?
No, we are not.
So, Ms. Mitchum, I think I'd like to hear from staff on this.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Overall, the number of soft landscaping in the front yard is increasing from what it is existing. Yes, so the hard landscaping is being reduced. If that portion of the driveway is meant to be used for parking of vehicles, it's definitely the minor variance is definitely required. Because any part of a driveway can be used to park a vehicle, and so yeah, so it's required. If enforcement were to be called regarding the parking in that driveway, if the owner has a minor variance for that driveway to permit that in front of the yard, then it doesn't become an issue down the line if someone parks in the driveway.
Madam Chair, I would suggest that the committee's in a position to deal with the minor variance application with respect to the garage addition in the rear yard area. I would also suggest that if there is, in fact, and I don't think we've got a clear indication one way or the other, if there is in fact a problem with the work that's going on in the front yard, I would suggest that that can be dealt with as a separate matter through, if necessary, the city issuing an order to comply, and then having to follow up with whatever changes to that construction or subsequent minor variance. But I'm of the opinion that we're in a position to be able to deal with the rear yard application, the rear yard variance applications, which is really all that has been presented to us tonight. Thank you.
Well, I think staff is saying though that notwithstanding the fact that that's what's been applied for, there may be more to this application than that. So I think that's what we're really trying to identify here. And I don't know, just from my own standpoint, I prefer to deal with an application more comprehensively. I'm not, I think it's better than trying to do this minor variance by minor variance. I guess I'm still trying to figure out at this point whether or not that drive. So here's a confusing thing. So Ms. Ramirez, you did say that the hard landscaping portion was increasing. Did I misunderstand?
So as a percentage of the front yard, it's decreasing slightly from what the existing situation is. Again, staff haven't been able to identify what is legal non-compliant, what is not. But there is a portion of that driveway that is being expanded into the large soft landscaping area, which measures 26.5 meters. That area is being decreased, but there is additional soft landscaping that is being suggested adjacent to the property line.
Okay, nobody's going to park on the soft landscaping next to the So in your opinion, having looked at the site, I guess I need to know, are you of the opinion that what's being proposed will result in the ability to park another vehicle in that driveway?
Currently, the driveway is being used for parking. Currently the area in front of the house is already used for parking, and it may make it easier with that expanded portion into that soft landscaping area. I will note, as an additional comment, a private approach permit is required for the work that's planned within the right-of-way, and a significant amount of the hard landscaping is planned for that area, but staff don't have the ability to comment on the right-of-way portion of this application. So that will be a separate matter that must be dealt with right-of-way.
All right, and could what Mr. White has suggested as a possible order to comply with the bylaw, if it's found that the functionality of what's being proposed now constitutes an expansion of the driveway and therefore needs a minor variance, can that be picked up as part of that process?
So our bylaws are enforced on a complaint basis. And so if members from the public issue a complaint, then bylaw will investigate. And they'll do their own process if additional minor variance is required, then they will issue an order to comply, yes.
All right, but I guess I'm wondering whether or not that, and it's an encroachment, sorry, what application did you say? It's an encroachment application that they require, right? No, not encroachment.
Private approach through the
private approach.
Yeah.
Does that trigger the ability to look at this and to, so we're just trying to see options here. Do we adjourn it or do we deal with it? If we decide that we're going to deal with it, then we need some comfort that somewhere along the line, if in fact there's an issue going forward that is, you know, based on your sort of comments and review of this, can it be picked up some other way?
I did reach out to my contact in the right-of-way office who noted that they would have to follow up with their manager regarding the work that is proposed within the right-of-way, and right-of-way won't issue permits if they don't have legal non-compliant rights or if they don't have the appropriate minor variances from the zoning bylaw.
And who reviews that? How do they pick that up?
So there is a private approach permit that needs to be submitted to the right-of-way office. And I did provide, I believe, the contact information for the right-of-way office under the additional comments there.
Does the right-of-way office look at zoning compliance as part of their application review process?
So they do. So if it was a simpler case, let's say that there was a driveway that wanted to expand in front of the front wall of the house, and they submitted an application to right-of-way. Right-of-way would look at that and they would look at the zoning bylaw. And if they didn't have a minor variance, they would say, no, you need to change your plans or you need to get a minor variance.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Ramirez. I think I'm getting a little clearer on our options here. Any other comments or questions from anyone on the panel? Because what I think I'm hearing is that we can deal with, oh, go ahead, Mr. Handel. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Ms. Ramirez, I'm just looking at your report here. Can you tell me what the difference is between the October 21 as-built and the November 3rd proposed?
So in October, there were some changes made to the rear yard because Heritage staff was looped in and they noted that the hardscaping in the rear yard was too much. And so in order to get the Heritage permit, some changes were needed to be made.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I see on the kind of left side, a number of the hardscaping was removed. Okay, but that doesn't affect the front yard portion in this case. So we'd run up against that issue kind of regardless.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, for me, I would tend, Madam Chair, I would tend to say that especially a garage, a variance related to a garage, an expansion of a garage is kind of intrinsically related to a driveway portion. And it sounds like short of an application for legal non-complying rights being put forward, which has not been applied for, it sounds like, I would prefer to either add the additional variance through a recirculation or put this off until we get confirmation of legal non-conforming rights.
All right, thank you, Mr. Handel. Other comments, Ms. Willis?
I'm just wondering whether or not, if first of all, we don't know for sure whether or not it has legal non-complying rights. We might ask the applicant whether, given the risk of having to come back to the committee at some point in future with another minor variance application and all the associated time and fees, that might be preferable. Just take your chances and go with it. I'm sort of on the fence about whether or not it's seems that it's not absolutely required at this time, but there is risk going forward, and combining the applications might be expeditious for the applicant.
Thank you, Ms. Willis, for that. Any other comments? All right, so Ms. Bushbaum, I think where the committee is landing on this is that there's enough concern by the committee about a number of things, whether or not there's true legal non-conforming rights. We heard from Mr. Hindle about the connection to the actual minor variances that you're requesting now, which I think is a valid point. There are some other options that we can go through. They're messier, definitely messier. And from the city's perspective, not the preference. The preference would be to go through a minor variance process, add that one, and make sure that going forward with your development, that you would be on, you'd have essentially ensured that you have exactly the zoning context that you need moving forward. So that said, I can offer the same thing to you, Ms. Bushbaum, with regards to getting maybe your material, if you wanted to proceed and getting on to the very next hearing of the committee, which would be on the 12th of January, there is an opportunity for you to do that. And then we could hear both variances together, and we would know that, that you're going to be covered, well covered to move forward with your development.
Okay.
Ms. Bushbaum, what would you prefer to do?
I will have to contact the client with regards to that on the options, and I could text him and I could get back to you shortly. I'm not sure if I could do that.
Well, okay, so we can step down this your application and come back to you if you want a little bit later this evening.
Yeah, that will be great.
All right, let's do that. Somebody please, so we've got a number of things, balls in the air, I think, at this point. So somebody will make sure that I'm keeping on track here, because we'll have to, we have a number of things that we've got to come back with. All right, okay, so with that, no decision yet on this adjournment request. So we're going to move forward to the next one, but I do see that there's a Mr. Rancourt with his hand up.
Yes.
Mr. Rancourt, can you tell me why you need to address the committee at this time?
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I'm the owner of the property, 54 Park. I just want to clarify something, and this is all new to me, but there's no changes to the front driveway. I mean, we're adding to this garage to the back of the house, to the back of the existing garage, onto an area that was already hard landscaping. So I don't understand what's the issue with the front driveway. There's no changes here. I mean, it's, we're not expanding this driveway. It's so can you explain to me, or can somebody explain to me?
Well, so, I mean, staff was pretty clear on their comments in their planning report, right? So they have a concern that in actual fact, that driveway and some of the, it sounds like there's soft landscape being added in some places and hard landscaping being added in others, that in actual fact, that driveway, the actual configuration and overall area of that driveway may require, based on, it may trigger the requirement for an added minor variance under the bylaw. So you are doing some things in the front that is creating what seems to be a bit of a risky situation in terms of compliance with the zoning bylaw going forward. I also heard that you're going to need a private approach from the city, and that process does go through a zoning review. So what we're trying to do is avoid then, and you can do that, but it's not the preferred way, because what's really better is to deal with, if this in fact is a possibility that it could be picked up in this way, might as well deal with it as a minor variance and add it to this now.
Okay, thank you.
Which means, though, Mr. Rancourt, just so you understand, means that your agent will then have to bring in the materials required to committee staff before Friday, like by Friday. I think Mr. Belmar can correct me, but I think you need the information by Friday in order to make the circulation timeframes required under the Planning Act to get this on the January 12th hearing.
Madam Chair, we can probably stretch that to no later than Tuesday, which would be our official closing date from an administrative perspective.
All right, thank you, Mr. Belmar. So that gives you 4 business days, Ms. Bushbaum, Mr. Rancourt, to do that.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so that means we are dealing with an adjournment. We're moving forward to adjourn to January 12th to add the minor variance and allow for that circulation. Okay. Any other comments by the committee? I'm going to go out to the public after this, but any other comments, Ms. Willis?
Just for clarification, I'm just wondering whether Mr. Rancourt's reaction was concurrent with that approach.
Mr. Rancourt, can you confirm that you've understood what I explained, that we're adding the minor variance in an abundance of caution to be sure that you do get your private approach and can move forward with your development? Do you understand that?
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So Madam Chair, just to be clear, I think what's happening here is that we are anticipating adjourning this to January 12th. And if there is the need for an additional minor variance, then in that case, a revised application will need to be submitted by no later than Tuesday of next week. Otherwise, this matter will be coming back on January 12th. And if no application or an additional minor variance has been submitted, then the current application as is will be before you.
Yeah, I know, but I guess that the whole point is we're going to get that minor variance added so that we're not in that situation. So I understand what you're saying is, for whatever reason it doesn't happen, that's exactly then the default position we're left in. But
my understanding was that there was additional review that was required on the part of city staff to ascertain legal non-conforming rights versus the need to add an actual minor variance. And so I just want to make sure that, you know, there's probably some discussion that's going to be going on between the agent, applicant, and city staff. So
Ms. Ramirez has her hand up, so we're going to hear Ms. Ramirez because she'll be able to maybe tell us what she really needs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the Secretary Treasurer is correct to know the full extent of relief that is required, that establishing a legal non-conforming rights application would be really instrumental in knowing, is it just the driveway, or in this area, there is the requirement that the driveway be, I want to say it's 1.5 meters from the side lot lines, is what they have right now. Was that existing from before there was a bylaw in place, or?
But Ms. Ramirez, we've seen applications for regularization tons of times before the committee before. So where it's really an abundance of caution, people do move forward knowing that they might even have legal non-conforming rights, but they get it under minor variance so that it's official. So I think this is what we're suggesting, that in fact happen here.
Okay, so I just want to then note that if it's just an abundance of caution to regularize the other aspects of the zoning bylaw, then there is the requirement that there is that 1.5 meter buffer between the driveway and the lot and the interior side lot line that would need to be regularized, as well as under the zoning bylaw, 50% of the front yard needs to be soft landscaping. I don't know what percentage it is, but I can ascertain that it's not 50%. So if we're looking to regularize all the non-compliances, then out of an abundance of caution, there are those additional minor variances.
Okay, so I think you've just added a few layers on top of some of this, but to be honest with you, at this point, I think we've heard enough. We're comfortable that nothing nefarious is being proposed here that would be, outside of what would seem reasonable. So if it's a matter of regularizing all of the pieces, then now's your chance. I guess the point is we need to make it happen, though, in the next 4 business days. So you would have to be sure to meet with Ms. Bushbaum and make that happen. Okay, somebody had their hand up. Ms. Willis.
No, I'm sorry, I'm very confused. Why were those issues not raised as part of the same situation? I guess I'm asking Ms. Ramirez, if the non-compliance exists today, why is it only the driveway that was raised as an issue that needed to be addressed?
There is a portion on the landscape plan that is a portion of the soft landscaping that is getting smaller. So they're going outside of what's currently existing. And so that is what that's what prompted me to say there's an additional minor variance that may be required here, because that large soft landscaping is getting larger. And for non-complying rights, what we generally say is that you're held to your building envelope, your footprint and your envelope. And so if you're wanting to build outside of that, then you need to apply to get it regularized.
So does that mean then that if the application comes forward on January 12th, with just the driveway issue addressed, staff's comment will be similar to what it was today, saying more variances are required.
So I haven't been able to ascertain the reason that staff raised that the issue of not legal, non-conforming with the driveway is because I haven't been able to ascertain what is legal and what is not. And so what prompted me was that reduction of that soft landscaping area, and I wouldn't be able to speak to the other elements.
So I'm inclined to go back to what we were originally going to do, is just deal with what's before us and let if the applicant's willing to take the risk that they're not going to get caught down the road with some issue to comply, that we deal with what's before us tonight and let the others chips fall where they may. It sounds like we've opened a whole can of worms by suggesting the adjournment.
It's been a good discussion, if you ask me, because what we really have found out is that the applicant, if they do that, they are at risk. So there's a couple of downsides to that. They are at risk if they go for a private approach permit. And on top of that, it means that we're dealing with an application in a piecemeal fashion, which to me is never the best planning approach, but that's just my opinion. But I would actually prefer at this point that if we're going to sharpen our pencils here and get this right, then get it right. So do regularize the pieces that you need, get it done within the next few days, and get the application in a shape by the time it gets in front of us on January 12th that we can deal with, and that the applicant will have some comfort that they can move forward with their development without any deficiencies that could come back and really hurt them.
Sorry, Madam Chair, sorry, didn't mean to butt in, but did we not just hear that it will be very difficult for staff to help the applicant determine what exactly the other areas of possible non-compliance are between now and next Tuesday?
Okay, I didn't think I heard that necessarily. Ms. Ramirez, can you confirm whether or not you're comfortable with that 4-day time frame?
So if we're just looking, I guess I would apply the rules for the zoning that is now. And I would say that if the applicant wants to regularize the existing situation, it's not only the parking in the front yard, it's also the green space next to the lot lines, variance from that, and also the percentage of the front yard that is hard landscaping versus what is required with the bylaw. So if we're wanting to regularize the existing situation now, those would be the ones that would be the additional ones to put on for the notice.
Okay. Any risk of anything that you might be missing? I guess Ms. Willis' concern was maybe you wouldn't have enough time to really review the application and to put your finger on all of the regularization, minor variance focused pieces that we need. But I think, if I'm hearing you correctly, you see probably probably three that would be required to be added to this.
Yes.
All right. Okay. Ms. Bushbaum, yes, you've been quiet. I'm going to give you the floor because you've been patiently listening to us discuss this at length.
I don't think that we will have enough time in 4 days to comply with all the new regulations that are brought to us today. When we started the project, as I explained before, the existing hardscape was there. Our only intention was to build a garage in the back to regularize all that with the current zoning regulations. We'll be almost redoing the entire front yard that was there before. When you go around the area, the two neighbors around exactly next to this property has the same driveway, and you could see that all along the way. So for us, when we went and we tried to ask for just 2 minor variants, to get all these requests to address all the front driveways seem a little bit overkill when the entire zoning or the entire area has the same situation.
Unfortunately, Ms. Bushbaum, it's your application and your proposal for development that brings you here and not them. So what I would suggest, though, is I don't see a lot of complexity in terms of adding these minor variances to a notice and doing a recirculation. So unless I've missed something, it sounds like Ms. Ramirez would be able to come up with the wording, possibly with you, in consultation with you. So you need to meet with Ms. Ramirez to come up with what those three additional minor variances would be. And I think we know the nature of them, but we're not going to make up the words this evening on that. And then that would be added to a notice that would be provided to the staff, committee staff, who would then proceed with their administrative process in order to get those before us on January 12th. I don't see, and maybe somebody correct me, but I don't see why that can't be done in 4 days, okay. 4 business days.
We will try.
All right, so that means that Ms. Bushbaum, you will contact Ms. Ramirez tomorrow to set up some time to talk with her about this.
Yeah.
All right. Do we have a plan? I'm just hoping we have a plan moving forward on this. Mr. White, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I think what we're saying, one way or the other, we would like to see this back on January 12th to deal with an application.
Yeah, if at the end of the day, you know, the wheels don't go into motion, at the very least, we're back into our default application. All right. With that, then, we haven't held the public portion of this adjournment yet, so let me get that done. For the record, is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak to this proposal to adjourn this application to January 12th? Now's your chance to either speak in favor or in opposition of that adjournment. Okay, I'm seeing no one. So members of the committee, all those in favor? All right, for the record, the decision is unanimous by the committee, and Ms. Bushbaum, I wish you luck in speaking with Ms. Ramirez over the next few days, and it'll be a pleasure to see your application, hear your application on January 12th with all the pieces put together.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much.
Madam Chair,
yes.
We do have the agent for item number 3, Mr. Ronan, on the call now.
Thank you very much. Okay, so Mr. Ronan, hang on here. All right, I've just got to make sure I'm looking at the right applications at the right time. Mr. Ronan, then come on forward. Mr. Ronan. Good evening. You're on mute. Mr. Ronan, you're on mute.
Can
there.
You hear me?
Nope, you're good. You're good. Your mic is on now. So, so Mr. Ronan, you're aware that there is a request by staff for an adjournment on this application?
Yes, and I'm a bit upset about it, but nothing I can do.
Okay.
No, I will tell you why, and somebody should have it on the record.
Now, then, please, this is being recorded, Mr. Ronan, so go ahead and get it on the record.
I applied for 2 things. One, it's the height of 5 meters, and the other one, it's the parking issue. I was away overseas when I got an email that I had a ticket to come back, to fly back on the 22nd of November, to fly back home. Lucky, the email that I received from the coordinators was that I should be in the city building to pick up the sign on the 23rd of the month. Lucky, I had the tickets pre-arranged with knowing nothing about the sign thing that I have to install myself, not less than 2 weeks prior to the hearing. And
Mr. Ronan, that information is available on the city's website. So
no, I just want to mention one thing. When I came to pick it up, I noticed that the parking was not appearing on the sign. The parking was removed from the agenda without us requesting it. That's why I'm upset.
Did you do pre-consultation with a planning staff member, Mr. Ronan, ahead of
we
submitting
had
your
discussions quite a bit back and forth. I got them the traffic reports that they asked. I got them everything that they asked me for. I hired a parking consultant, traffic consultant that did the full reports, and they give him some stages that he has to follow, which he did. And I didn't ask for that not to be part of the hearing.
Ms. Cully, can we hear from you, please?
I'm sorry?
No, I'm asking the staff member. I'm going to address.
I couldn't hear what you were saying. So
that's fine. So Ms. Cully, can you tell us a little bit about the history on this then, so that we understand it?
Through you, Madam Chair, I understand that Mr. Ronan had been speaking with the senior planner for this file. I know nothing about what was discussed before I received the application, though in review of my application, it was found that parking would require additional relief from the zoning bylaw, and that's why it was indicated in the report. I'm not sure where the variance might have been removed, but only one variance was on the public notice during my review.
I don't understand.
All right, so Mr. Ronan, just give me a few minutes, Mr. Ronan. Let me speak with staff to understand what happened. Okay, so I'm just trying to. You raised an issue.
I can't hear what she's saying. She doesn't speak clear enough.
So she has said that she wasn't able to explain to us why the parking wasn't on your notice. So you picked up the sign, and when you picked up the sign, you noticed that something was missing from your minor variance request, and it was a parking piece. So now we're trying to find out what the complete application looked like, so that we understand from there how the notice went out. So at this point, I may need to speak with the Secretary Treasurer, Mr. Belmar, to find out if that was truly missed somewhere or what have you. We need to understand the story. So Mr. Belmar, looking for some guidance from you on that.
Madam Chair, I would need to investigate that. We would have to take a look at the original application as it came in. I don't know if one of the coordinators has it on their screen. I don't have it available on hand.
All right, so I guess all I really need to understand then, Mr. Belmar, is whether or not we missed it for the notice. We don't have the senior planner here that was consulted. Ms. Cully wasn't part of those discussions, so we can't determine whether or not that parking piece was missed from the notice at that point. But just wondered whether or not from the complete application, we can figure out where that piece got dropped.
I would need to.
Madam Chair, sorry to interrupt,
Emily.
but I do have a revised application form dated November 4th, which removes the requested height variance. I can share my screen.
Yes, that would be helpful. Ms. Manette.
Sorry, having a bit of issues. Perhaps one of the other coordinators can pull it up. It's on SharePoint and it's labeled revised November 4th.
Okay, while we're waiting for that, I'd like to hear from Mr. Ronan then. Mr. Ronan, are you aware that there was a revised application submitted on November 4th that deleted that parking requirement? Aha, okay. Is that your writing, Mr. Ronan? Mr. Ronan, you're on mute. Mr. Ronan, you are on mute.
Is it okay now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Is that your handwriting on this form?
Yes, it is. Definitely is mine.
All right. Do you see that that's been, seems that you've struck out?
Not by me.
So application details?
Sorry, no. I didn't scratch that. It's not my right. It's not me that did that. And nobody will do that except me.
So
and
in
I
any
haven't
event,
done it.
Mr. Ronan, I don't see parking here anyway, though. So I see the zoning bylaw for the height.
Number of parking, 4 to 9 floors. And then I took it and put it on a separate page. Where is the other page? No, not this one. A separate page with the same page.
Okay, well, so Mr. Ronan, here's section number 5, application details.
No, there is another one that it's missing from here.
Ms. Manette, do you know what he's referring to? As a committee member, we don't see the applications ourselves.
No, I understand. I understand your point. But what I'm saying is that I sent Paul Connors, I think the last name was, I sent him a clean one without any marks.
This is the one that we have on record for whatever reason.
No, he had the other one on record too. He just probably misplaced it, that's all. Because I had a full discussion with him on that.
Okay. We have the information that we have.
That's okay. Look, I agree to postpone it to February the 2nd. Okay?
All right.
That's what I said, but I said that I'm upset the way that the parking was handled, that's all. And why, so I said that, and that's it.
So, Mr. Ronan, we're very concerned as a committee, right? When we hear from applicants that say that for whatever reason, their application, what's before us doesn't reflect what the request was for. So we tend to do, just let me finish.
Yeah.
We tend to try and do a deep dive on this so that we can understand it and improve service to the residents of the city and to applicants. So if that's the case, I'm going to ask you to take up, so I'm glad you raised it with us. But if you would please just pursue this with committee staff, because we would like to understand what happened on your application in this case, just so that we know how to improve the processes.
Look, we all have through the corona, we have a big problem because as you see, I'm in Toronto, you're in Ottawa, we're talking to a Zoom that some have problems with, some don't. I can hear some, I cannot hear everybody. I mean, it's the same thing when you want to speak to staff, you cannot. I'm trying for a few days to speak to staff, and I can do it only through emails. So in the email, I ask even for staff to call me, and they don't do that. So I understand all the problems. Look, I have the same problems as a builder too, but I'm just trying to tell you that I was upset to find out that there was no parking on the site, and I had nobody that could explain me, but I was afraid to miss the date. That's why I ran to place it.
All right. So I think we do have better understanding now of what did happen, save and except for what happened between the original and the revised. So we need to find that out. That doesn't change, though, how we're going to deal with this evening. You've already indicated to committee members that you are willing to go to a February 2nd hearing date. So committees members, does anybody have any other final comments? Because what I'm going to ask at this point, I can't ask for a vote because I still have to go to the public, but any final comments before I do that? Mr. Handel?
I'm just curious if February gives enough time for the site plan application first round of comments to go through.
Site plan application is nothing to do with my application here.
Actually, that's not true, Mr. Ronan. Mr. Handel has raised a very good point. Typically, when applications come to the Committee of Adjustment, it's after there's at least been an initial review of a site plan application so that we know that when we're dealing with your application, we actually have all of the elements that require minor variances. If you've been listening prior to the application, your application that we're hearing now, one of the things that the committee likes to do is to ensure that we deal with minor variances comprehensively on an application to the extent that we can. Not always possible, but we like to do that and be comprehensive rather than piecemeal when we can. So what Mr. Hindle has raised, with
the planning. I don't understand. It was arranged with planning, with Wendy.
No. So we have comments. Have you read the staff report, Mr. Ronan? Have you read the staff report?
Staff report. Well, I didn't get any. What staff report?
All right, so I will read to you. There's a staff report. So as the applicant, it is your responsibility to reach out to committee staff and get this material prior to the hearing. So it's very clear from the report, the planning report that was submitted by Ms. Cully, that an adjournment is requested to allow time for the owner to apply for additional relief and for, at a minimum, the first circulation of the site plan review to be complete. And the reason why is because of what I explained to you just a minute or two ago, which is to ensure that we have at least the first review by planning staff and have the full set of minor variances that we may require in order to allow your development to proceed. Okay,
somebody failed to mention that we have a site plan agreement already on place.
No, you don't. You need to get through the process. Oh,
yes, I do.
Okay.
Yes, I do. Right. It's a revision to existing site plan.
All right. So, Ms. Cully, can you please tell us why we're not relying on that site plan agreement?
Through you, Madam Chair.
We have one.
Agreement was for a different portion of the property. So this portion of the property is going through site plan control currently. The date that Mr. Ronan has indicated was discussed with the senior planner on this file, and February 2nd should give enough time to answer Mr. Hindle's question to allow for that review.
All right. Well, Mr. Ronan, we have been able to listen and hear Ms. Cully despite your interruptions. So Ms. Cully has explained that Mr. Ronan, would you please let me explain it to you? Because you're saying you don't understand her and I'm trying to tell you, and you're cutting me off. So Ms. Cully has suggested that in actual fact, the site plan approval that you have now is not for this portion of the property. She has explained that in actual fact, you have applied.
True. It is for that property. I'm sorry. She doesn't know that. It is for the 4 buildings. 3 of them are built, and the 4th one we need minor variance on in order to build. Because of we have a site plan agreement to build a 5-story building for an office and medical. The parking is done for it. The site services are done. Everything is done on it already. The only thing that we're asking for within the zoning for very small minor variance, one needs to go 5 meters above in order to overcome the problem that we have with the corona. I cannot build an office building now because it will be a white elephant. So I'm doing it as less offices, and I'm doing the balance of that. I'm doing a self-storage, and the site plan for that building is in. It's done already 4.5 years ago. I paid the deposits. Right, so I paid over $1 million deposits for that. I did all the work for that.
All right, so Ms. Cully, what I'm going to ask, so Mr. Ronan, we're going to see if we can get some clarity here. If we can get the plan up, I need to understand this. So there is a plan as part of the report that shows the different parts. Hang on. All right. I need to understand the site. So where were their site plans already in effect, like site plan approvals provided? What's remaining and what's been applied for now? Ms. Cully, do you have a plan that you can point to different parts and tell us what's going on from a site?
I'm home now. I'm not in my office.
No, so no, that's right. I'm asking Mr. Ronan, I'm asking Ms. Cully to bring up that information.
I'm sorry.
Through you, Madam Chair. I can just clarify, the requirement here is an amending site plan for the new building, if that helps.
Amending site plan, so it's a revision to an approved site plan. So it's a site plan control process regardless, but it's an amendment.
It is an amendment.
Okay. And that process then is, where are we in that process? Revising the, I beg your pardon?
It's just begun. There's no fulsome review completed at this point.
All right. Okay. All right. So, Mr. Ronan, I think we have some more explanation. So, you tell me if you agree with this. So, there was a site plan approval years ago for the property with the 4 buildings. You are now, though, because you have a vacant property on that, you're revising the site plan. You're revising a portion of the site plan in order to allow you to do something different than what was proposed originally years ago. Is that correct? Have I got that right so far? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, Mr. Ronan. Mr. Ronan, you're on mute.
Is it okay now?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
So you're revising your site plan, correct?
The thing is that here is the site plan.
Okay.
The 3 buildings are built. It's all a condominium. The 3rd one just been applied for registration now. And the 4th one, instead of, we change a bit. I'm trying to change it so for over a year already to make something that the market can absorb. And I found out that if I will stay within the zone, I try to rezone and planning will not approve of rezone. They said that so I'm doing something that will be easy, that it's part of the zoning, which is self-storage, which is part of the zoning. Instead of doing 5 floors of offices and medical, I will do only 3.5 floors of offices and medical. And the rest of it, I will do 5.5 floors of self-storage. That's all what I'm doing. What I'm doing is now to do the self-storage, in order to make it economical, I have to build the building to be a much bigger square footage than the office building was. So when we did the calculation, we saw that we are short in account of the soil in the area. We cannot do basements. If I could do a basement, then I don't need zone. I don't need to see anybody for the heights. I wouldn't need any approval for the heights because I could do it with the existing zoning of the 30 meters. But by the way, this 30 meters was established years and years and years ago when 30 meters was very high building. Since then, 30 meters, it's not high enough. So that's why I need the extra 5 meters to contain at least 110 to 115,000 square feet of self-storage in order to make it economical.
Okay, so Mr. Ronan, I think, okay, so what you've been able to do, and thank you very much for this, is you've been able to confirm that in fact, you are revising an existing site plan. So that site plan was approved years ago, and for market reasons today, you need to make some changes to the last portion of your property. And that's what, so that part that was now, you know,
so
the
we
subject.
need to amend the existing site plan agreement. It's not a new one, it's an amended one.
Exactly, exactly. And we understand that now. That's great.
Okay,
that's great.
And so we have a site plan that we paid for, and we did the work, and we did all the, and we provide the securities for that.
Okay, so what we've heard though, Mr. Ronan, and this was Mr. Hindel's point. Mr. Hindel was saying, okay, we could adjourn this to February 2nd, but the amendment to the site plan might not be far enough along in the review process, and we heard this from Ms. Cully as well, in order to ensure that all of the minor variances that you might need will be included.
No, I want to say another thing to that effect that I forgot, that the February 2nd dates, the beginning of February, the earliest part, we didn't know yesterday what date it will be. We knew only later on during the day. But first thing in the morning, we had a conference called Wheat Planning with Wendy. Wendy, I'm trying to remember the last name. I'm very bad with names. You have to forgive me. Wendy
C, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a conference call with her between our architect and our traffic consultant from Arthur Gordon and Nicholas Kirianis and myself. We had a meeting with her and we agreed that the meeting we will postpone it. I wanted to be on the 12th of January. She mentioned exactly what he mentioned a minute ago, that she wouldn't be finishing by then. So she suggested the early part of February. That's what the 2nd of February came on.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ronan. You've just confirmed a number of things that I was going to ask, because if you did have that meeting, and Ms. Cully, I take it you were not part of that meeting. Is that correct?
No,
I'm sure I was not a part of that meeting, but I was aware of that meeting and know of that too.
All right. Did anybody brief you, Ms. Cully, on the results of that meeting?
I'm sorry?
Mr. Ronan, I'm asking Ms. Cully some questions, so just a minute.
Through you, Madam Chair, I understood that February 2nd was the date that was agreed upon to allow for review of the site plan control.
And that would be sufficient amount of time in order to ensure that the fullness of the review was done and that we would capture all of the minor variances?
That is correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, so the only little caveat here I want to be sure of, though, is that means, though, that in fact, that review has to be done 3 weeks earlier, 4 weeks earlier, in order to make sure that we can amend the notice to include all of the variances that are required, right? So it's not that we need the answer of all the minor variances on the day of like the 2nd of February. You got to backcast that. So do we still have enough time, Ms. Cully? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
I was on mute. Let me confirm that for you. One moment.
All right.
Can I say one more thing that I forgot?
I just want to talk with, can I just speak with my panel members? They've been very quiet and they haven't had a chance to jump in here. So I want to give them a chance to say what they think. So in my mind, if Ms. Cully can confirm to us that a mid-January timeframe still will do it for them in order to get things, are we generally in support then of moving forward with the adjournment to the 2nd of February? Okay, all right, well, that would be good. That would be good to do that. Okay.
One more thing I want to say. We deal with planning since September on it. We applied for the amendment in the site plan agreement back in September with her. The staff keep changing. And it's the 3rd person in planning we're dealing with under Wendy.
All right, so Mr. Ronan,
that's what creating the delays too with them to finish all the approvals. It's nothing to do with us.
Yeah, so Mr. Ronan, I understand. I appreciate that there are sometimes some frustrations in that regard.
All the time.
Well, but Mr. Ronan, I will admit, I mean, you were not prepared this evening for this meeting to the extent that most applicants aren't.
I was prepared. I'm sorry. We were fully prepared.
You told me you hadn't read the planning report and that you hadn't had a chance to receive. That is your responsibility as an applicant to get. Sure. All right, so Ms. Cully, your answer, please.
Through you, Madam Chair, I just confirmed with the senior planner, February 2nd is okay.
All right, okay. That said, I'm going to make a call out there to the audience. Is there anyone in the audience who wants to speak either for or against this proposal to adjourn to February 2nd? Now's your chance. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward. So members of the committee, all those in favor adjourning to February 2nd. All right, for the record, the decision is unanimous by the committee. So Mr. Ronan, we will see you on February 2nd. And I would ask that-
Via the computer.
I beg your pardon?
I said I hope in a real meeting and not in a Zoom meeting. I hope by February think it's going to be able to sit in a meeting.
Well, and not you won't have to leave Toronto. You can stay in Toronto. But that said, though, Mr. Ronan, I will. I'm going to ask you, if you could, to be sure to reach out to staff, to committee staff, a week before that hearing. So at the end of January, so that you have all of the materials that are available that come to us. So the planning report and all of that, just be sure you get that information if you could, please. Including, just look at the report and any additional material that staff has.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, and have yourself a great evening, Mr. Roman.
You too, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, on to the next application. I think, are we on did we do number 4 or are we back to number 4? No, number 4 was what, Alpine? Did we deal with this? And this was Mr. Cursipew, or is this a new one? Hang on.
Number 4, we're keeping live. We're hearing this evening.
Ah, yes, that's why it's over here. Thank you very much, Mr. I knew I was going to get confused with some of this. So.
I think the next one is number 8.
Yes, number 8, exactly. Thank you. All right, so do we have Mr. View? Mr. View, okay, I think you're with us. Mr. View?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Sorry.
That's all right. So Mr. View, you are aware that there has been a request by staff to adjourn this application sine die?
Yes, please.
All right, okay. If you're okay with that, then great.
I'm okay. Yes, I'd like to have time to meet with the site plan control people and go through all that properly before we resubmit.
All right, excellent. Any questions for Mr. View from members of the panel? All right. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this request for adjournment sine die, either for or against? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward, so we can go right to a vote. Pretty simple. Members of the panel, all those in favor of a sine die adjournment on this application? For the record, the application is adjourned sine die. Mr. View, good luck. And,
good evening.
And we'll see you again, I'm sure, at some point.
Thank you. Committee.
Bye now.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one more. And that would be on application number 11 for 3020 Hawthorne Road. And I'm looking for Mr. Bays, Eric Bays.
Madam Chair, the agent for number 11 advised that he would not be attending tonight as it's a sine die adjournment.
Okay, so I was confused because I see that there's somebody in the audience called Eric, so I thought I was waiting for somebody. All right, okay, in that case, all right. So the proposal for the benefit of the audience, there is an agent request to adjourn sine die the application. Well, application number 11 on our agenda tonight for 3020 Hawthorne Road. Is there anyone who would like to speak to that adjournment either for or against? All right, I'm not seeing anybody, and we don't have the applicant here either. So I get very comfortable that they want their sine die on that case. So with members of the panel then, all those in favor of a sine die adjournment of this application? And again, for the record, the decision is unanimous by the committee. Great. I think that takes us to the end.
Madam Chair, I just received a last minute adjournment request for item number 7.
All right.
2000 City Park.
All right. Thank you. Hang on. Just give me a minute to get that one out. All right, so application number 7, we're looking for Mr. Albanese.
Hello?
Hello?
Hello, sorry. Do you see me? Okay.
Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. So Are you an agent for?
Yeah, so good evening. My name is Katrina Magash, and I'm a registered professional planner with IBI Group representing Quadrille on this file.
All right. Can you tell us, so this is news to us. Can you tell us what you're, why you're requesting an adjournment?
Yeah, of course. So we were did undertake pre-consultation with the various city departments and agencies. However, upon receipt of the staff report on earlier this week, there are just a few conditions that we would like to discuss a bit more closely with staff. And we've already initiated some of these discussions. So we politely request that this be deferred to the January 12th meeting for hearing, if possible, to allow these discussions to take place. Yeah.
All right. Any questions from the panel on this? No? Okay. I'm going to make a call out to the public then. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak to this request for an adjournment for 1900 2000 City Park Drive to January 12th? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward, so we can vote committee. All those in favor of adjourning this application to January 12th. All right, so Ms. Magash, I hope I got that right.
Close enough, yeah.
Close enough, okay. Then your application is clearly approved for adjournment, so we will see you back on the 12th of January after the holidays.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. Have a good night.
All right, thank you so much. Okay. Any more? Since we're on a roll, can we bring them on? Exactly. All right, we're going to go to our regular agenda at this point, and just give me a moment. Okay, starting with application number 2. Mr. Wager, I guess, and I did see you were still there, so.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Good evening.
Up to you. I mean, depending with the way that the night's gone, I'm fine to go without the presentation, but if you'd like to hear one, I'm happy to provide.
Nope, we are not asking for a presentation from you this evening. That's fine.
All right.
So with that, though, what we're going to do is I'm going to open it up directly to committee members at this point for any questions for clarification. Anyone? Mr. Hindle.
Can I just get staff to confirm the changes to the language of the condition that's come up in the last little bit?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff did have a meeting with the applicant's team earlier in the day, and we are have no concerns with the changes to language that is proposed.
All right, so I think I'm going to read this into the record just to be sure that we have it. And I assume it's the one that we got like very late today, correct? Yep, is it? Okay, I'm going to read this, and if it's wrong, then somebody correct me as I go. So the owner provide proof to the satisfaction of the development review manager of the East Branch within Planning, Infrastructure, and Economic Development Department, or his or her designate to be confirmed in writing from the department to the committee that a blanket easement for vehicular traffic has been or will be registered with the Land Registry Office. And we are striking the blanket easement, or the severed parcel. We're striking just the blanket easement, retaining over the severed parcel, blanking should be, and then again, it then carries on in favor of the owners of the retained parcel, and we're striking, and the blanket easement over the retained parcel should be in favor. And then in brackets, I have, which may be evidenced by an undertaking of the owner, and then we're striking of the severed parcels, and then we're adding solicitor. Is that the right one?
Through you, Madam Chair, if I may, it may be easiest perhaps if we can have the coordinator pull up the last slide on my presentation. This will provide us a visual with the final wording that's been proposed and agreed upon by city staff.
Excellent, excellent.
So please go to slide 7. should be the last one. There we are.
All right, so that's removing all of the, it's okay. So this is the final wording essentially. Right?
Correct. And perhaps maybe if Ms. Ramirez just wants to confirm she's satisfied that this is indeed what we shared with her earlier today.
Yes, Madam Chair, I can confirm this is what was shared with me earlier today.
Yep, okay, and I've done a quick review too, and it's exactly, once you get all the red and blue lines and everything out of it, yeah, it's the final version. Okay, great, thank you for that, Mr. Weiger, it really is helpful. Okay. So we're exchanging that, so we know that for condition number, and I can't remember what condition number that was.
Condition 4.
Condition number 4. Okay, so we are replacing condition number 4 with what was on the screen for the record. Any questions or anything else by the members on this? All right, on my speakers list, let's see, do I have anyone? No, I don't have any members of the public on my list. I have Mr. Elliott, but I see you there. Mr. Elliott, did you want to add anything before we move on?
No, Madam Chair, I was on standby for any questions that might come up, but okay, that's fine. Thank you.
All right. With that, then I'm going to open it up to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak either for or against this application for consent? All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward on this. And apart from those 4 conditions and the revisions, anything else before we go to a vote? All right, so members of the panel, all those in favor of granting this consent application? All right, so for the record, the decision is unanimous by the committee to grant this, this application at Telesat Court. So good luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to application number 5, which is for 340 Shakespeare Street. Good evening, Mr. Robinson.
Evening, Madam Chair.
All right, we will not be requesting a presentation from you this evening on this. That said, there may be some clarifying questions from the committee.
The oath.
Oh, you know what? Thank you. And I think I may have forgotten that with our previous applicant. We were on a roll on so many other things. So thank you so much, Mr. Robinson. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear that to be true.
All right, thank you, Mr. Robinson. Okay, back to any questions from the committee on this application? Don't think so. I think it's pretty straightforward. Oh, Mr. White, go ahead.
Just a quick one, Madam Chair, staff. Can someone tell me the minimum lot width requirement in this zone? I don't notice we're finding the application per area for square meter area. What is the minimum lot width for a residential unit in this zone?
Madam Chair, just give me a minute to confirm. I believe it's 10 meters for a 3-unit dwelling, but just give me one moment to pull up my notes.
Okay, that's fine.
Madam Chair, I can confirm it's 10 meters for a 3-unit dwelling.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ramirez.
Thank you.
And in this case, well, go ahead, Mr. White. You probably want to follow up on that.
No, that's fine. I just had the question. Obviously, the issue is just simply the depth of the lot that doesn't enable us to meet the area requirement. Thank you.
All right. Okay, thanks. Anything else in terms of questions from anyone? All right. Mr. Robinson, you do know that we've received a couple of letters of opposition. You've read them, you're aware of them?
Yes.
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about the consultation that you undertook as part of the process?
Sure. About the time, soon after the application was scheduled to be heard, I prepared a 2-page summary of the application with some extracts of the site plan and the front elevation and a description of what was being proposed. It was delivered to some houses immediately nearby on Shakespeare, and then houses to the east, and then a couple of houses to the rear on Montfort. I did receive an email from one of the property owners behind on Montfort. He had some questions about timing, and as well about the garage on the property and whether that could be salvaged for their own purposes. We did have a meeting last Thursday with the Vanier Community Association representatives and went over a number of things. So information was distributed ahead of time to nearby property owners, and we received those comments from the Vanier Community Association and then comments from the property owner immediately to the east.
All right, thank you. Okay. With that then, Mr. White, is your hand up from before, or is it, okay, all right. I just wanted to be sure I didn't miss that. Okay, with that then, I don't have any registered speakers for this application, but I do see that we have some friends with us this evening that may have an interest. So let me open it up to the public. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee either for or against this application? Just raise your hand and we can bring you forward. Good evening. Can I have, if I might, before we get going, could you please give me your full name and your municipal address?
Are you speaking to me?
Yes, I am. I am.
The VCA. Yeah, my name is Chris Greenshields. I'm a resident of Vanier 107 Selkirk Street.
All right, thank you. So the floor is yours.
Yes, well, you've already received our written submission. I would not state it as a submission of opposition. It basically outlines what we understand will be conditions that will govern the acceptance of the variance. We had a useful discussion with the applicant, and we outlined our concerns in terms of various aspects related to the front yard setback and protection of trees, the possible use of off landscaping for parking and how that could be addressed in the future by additional hedges or fencing and so on. There was a concern also that the ground floor appeared to be a potential fourth unit in each building, which would trigger site plan review. After our conversations with the applicant and the assurances that we received, which I think could usefully be done through whatever the building permit process is or the variance conditions, we're satisfied that all of these concerns are being addressed and will continue to be addressed in the future. We have had a number of cases in Vanier where we get applications for 3 units with a clear indication that there is a plan for a 4th unit, but there was an effort to avoid a site plan control process. We've been satisfied by our conversation with the applicant that this use, the basement area, is for storage and amenity space for the residents of each building. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you. We do appreciate your taking the time to address the committee. Okay, any questions for our speaker? No? Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience who would like to address the committee on this application? Okay, I'm not seeing anybody else come forward in that case. So committee, well, Mr. Robinson, any last words before we go to a vote?
No, that was, I'm nothing else to add.
All right, thank you. All right then, committee, all those in favor of the minor variance application? Mr. White, okay. So for the record, the decision by the committee is unanimous. We are granting the minor variance. So good luck, Mr. Robinson, with the project.
Thank you and have a good evening. Good night.
All right. Thank you so much. Okay. On to application number 9, which is for Paget Road, 2243 Paget Road. Looking for the agent, whom I believe is Sarah Butt. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just about to introduce myself. I'm here on behalf of our client, Eric Liang, who represents the owner, and my colleague Benjamin Clare is also in attendance today. So, yeah.
All right, thank you. Before we get going, though, I have this affirmation that I have to read to you, or the solemn declaration. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times visible and legible during the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
Yes.
Do you swear or do you affirm?
I swear that to be true.
All right, thank you very much. With that then, we are not requesting a presentation at this particular point in time. I am going to open it up directly to committee members for questions. Anyone on this one? All right, let me just have a quick look at my own notes at this point. Ms. Butts, you've had a chance to look at all the conditions. You've read the staff report.
Yes, yeah, I have. And we concur with what's been submitted.
All right. And you are aware that there is a submission in opposition to the proposal?
Yeah, so I did review that letter, and I understand it was provided by the neighbor to the immediate east of the subject lands. I guess to summarize, my understanding was that the letter mentions concerns about privacy, property value, how the proposal relates to the character of the neighborhood, but it appears to be based on a proposal for triplexes. And with due respect to the neighbor, if they are here tonight, we understand from our client that their intent is to construct single detached dwellings on the proposed parcels. And yeah.
And can you just tell me a little bit about the consultation process that was followed?
Yeah, so we engaged with city staff for non-mandatory pre-consultation, and we received feedback on June 14th, 2021. We had been in touch with the ward councilor's office, as well as Chapel Hill North Community Association by way of email regarding this application on October 1st of this year, and no concerns were raised. And as well, on behalf of our client, letters were mailed to neighbors surrounding the subject lands to provide information on the proposal. So that is a brief summary. I don't know if you'd like more information.
Okay, no, that's fine. That's a good overview. Okay, with that then, if there, oh, Mr. Hindle.
Thank you. I just building on that with the intent, it sounds like the intention is for single family. Mr. Ramirez, I think I noticed in your staff report that the zoning is restricted to just single dwelling units. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. Yes, the zoning is residential first density subzone WW, and that restricts the dwelling form to single detached dwellings under the current zoning bylaw.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so triplexes would not be permitted under the zoning. That would be a whole other ordeal. Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions from the panel? All right, then. I think we can go to the public portion, and I do believe I have a registered speaker on this application. Is it Dennis or Denise Labrosse? I see that person is with us. Denny?
Yes, it's Denny.
It's Denny. So you can come forward, then we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, I'm trying to get this going here. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay.
There you go. Yes, so I'm the person who did send that letter. The reason I'm concerned about apartments, obviously, is noise. I'm surprised. I'm happy to hear that the bylaw states that triplexes cannot be built there, but I'm kind of questioning that because to the south of the lot are 2 triplexes.
Okay, so what might be happening is, and I don't have a zoning map in front of me, but sometimes there's the dividing lines between zones can be, one across the street,
right.
In this case, or it may be that those triplexes date far before the bylaw in any event. But I think we've heard very clearly that the zone in which this property happens to be, there's no permission for triplexes. It's single family houses only.
Okay.
Is there anything else, Mr. Labrosse?
No, I'm good with that.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Labrosse then as we go forward? All right. Not seeing any. Okay. So that was the end of my speakers list, but that doesn't mean that you can't address the committee. So if you have an interest in this application or have any questions, now's your chance just to raise your hand and we can bring you in. All right, I'm not seeing anybody come forward then. Just Ms. Butts then, looking at the conditions, you've had a chance to look at them. Any questions or anything you want to discuss before we go to a vote?
No, I have no further questions or anything that we would like to discuss at this point.
All right, in that case, members of the committee, we can go to a vote on this application. All those in favor? All right, so for the record, the application is granted unanimously by the panel. And I think that brings us to the conclusion of this matter.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, committee.
Thank you. Have a nice evening. Okay, takes us to application number 10. Yes, application number 10, which is for Claridge Homes at 319 Affogato Walk, I believe is the name. Mr. I think I'm looking for Mr. Denham? Vincent? Denham? Yep. Hi there, how are you?
Good, yourself?
Good, thank you. Okay, I need to read something to you before I forget. Let me do that. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times clearly visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
No, I swear that to be true.
All right, thank you. Again, just one little housekeeping thing I'd like to take care of on the notice. My understanding is that the zoning reference was incorrect. So we are going to change that to zoning R3Z bracket 2532 bracket. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so the notice is hereby amended. With that, then, no presentation. Members of the committee, any questions for Mr. Is it Denome or is it just Denome?
Denome.
Denome, yeah. Okay. No questions? All right. Let me have a look at my speakers list. Where are we on this? Number 10. No, we do not have any speakers that are registered. So is there anyone in the audience who would have an interest in this application or questions or comments, either for or against? Now's your chance to address the committee. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody come forward on this. That said, Mr. Denemy, is there any last words for you before we go to a vote?
Nope.
All right, very good. All those in favor of the application, approving the application? Yes. All right, for the record, the minor variance application is granted unanimously by the panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, have a nice evening. I think I missed going back to number 4 at 898 900 Alpine Avenue with Mr. Cursipew. So if we can bring Mr. Cursipew back on this one. Hi again. So now I'm going to read something to you and then I've got a housekeeping matter to go through. All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing and that the notice was visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear that to be true.
All right. Thank you. On to just a very quick housekeeping matter on this. The legal description apparently on the notice needs a couple of changes. So it's part of lot 380 registered plan 348 parts 1, and we're adding to 4 and 3 on plan 4R 34012. Is that correct?
No, it's actually the part of is to be removed. It's lot 380. It's the entire lot. And it's parts 1 to 4, and 3 is not required being within that.
And 3 is not required?
No, it's 1 to 4.
Okay. All right. Very good. Is the reference to plan 4R 34012 correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. All right. In that case, it is so amended. All right. Not looking for a presentation from you either this evening on this application, but I am going to open it up to members of the committee. Yes, Mr. Handel.
So maybe Mr. Carispiu, could you just walk us through how we got to this scenario? It sounds like there was originally the dimensioning was taken off of the foundation, and that is not compliant with the zoning. Is that the case?
The as-built survey that we submit to the building inspector notes the foundation of the building, and the foundation of the building did not encroach into the rear yard. However, the framing of the building allowed the siding to overhang the foundation and encroach by 1.5 inches into the 28-foot rear yard setback. The issue really arose because we have a new framing crew with today's process, and the framing requirement under the building code now includes a 2-inch styrofoam backed sheathing that surrounds the building, and they weren't used to dealing with a 2-inch sheathing where they put up the wall where it sits on the 10-inch concrete wall was too close to the edge, so that when the siding went over, it goes over by 1.5 inches.
Okay. So in this case, but it was a true construction error. The proposed drawings as provided through the building permit process complied with the zoning. And then, as you say, through construction, we're 1.5 inches off in the as-builts, just in the rear?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, that's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mendel. Mr. White.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a question. Was this dimension issue picked up by an Ontario land surveyor on a survey?
No, because because the surveyor measures the foundation. So the as-built survey from the surveyor did not encroach. So the foundation wall itself did not encroach into the rear yard. The issue is the siding overhangs the edge of the foundation and it encroaches into the wall. So it was actually a site measurement with a tape to indicate that we're, 1 inch over the foundation wall.
Thank you. Madam Chair, traditionally, the mentioning of to determine compliance with zoning bylaw provision is done by an Ontario land surveyor. I mean, I think in every situation I've ever seen that you confirm zoning by reference to such a plan prepared by an OLS. I'm just wondering if the city has a policy with respect to the information that is collected for to determine zoning compliance. Maybe staff could answer that question. It's just unusual that dimensions like that aren't confirmed by OLS data.
Perhaps I misspoke. The actual foundation is confirmed by the surveyor. So the surveyor does survey exactly where the as-built foundation is located, and it did not encroach into the rear yard.
Yeah, I understand that, and that's traditionally that's the dimensions that someone looks at to determine compliance with a zoning bylaw. It's not very usual to use construction or as-built data unless it's confirmed by an OLS, but perhaps the city has a policy.
We've built 14 of these over the last 3 years, and this is the first time it's occurred for us.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised if we're dealing with information that's not OLS certified. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. White. Any other questions or comments on any of this? All right, in that case.
Madam Chair, sorry, I wonder if staff might comment on my issue.
Ms. Cully, any insight?
Through you, Madam Chair, I did not discuss that with the zoning plans examiner, so I cannot speak to building code services on that.
All right, Mr. White, it's a good point. So let's not forget it. So be sure to bring that forward as part of our quarterly discussions with planning staff. It's always good to get clarity about how all this works. So that and again, a question of consistency. I think we've heard that it hasn't come up in some cases, and here it is coming up in this case. So
could I add one quick comment to that, please?
Yes, can.
Not through the zoning. It was actually brought up by the building inspector on site doing the framing inspection.
That's interesting. Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Crispi on this? All right. I just have that one. We have a number of letters of opposition. You're aware of those?
I am, yes.
All right. And I've been asking everyone about this. When I see letters of opposition, I like to know what the consultation was. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure. With the original building permit application, we did provide site plan and information to the immediate neighbors with contact information for them to get a hold of us to discuss any concerns they may have. We spoke to 2 of the neighbors, providing further clarification. We also sent the information to the councillor's office on the original application, the original building permit application. And I believe that when we put this all into metric and the extent of this, it doesn't really come across that's only 1.5 inches to the neighbors. We're talking about, you know, loss of light and other impacts on their property.
Okay, all right, thank you. With that then, if there's no further questions, I can go to the public portion. I don't have anyone on my speakers list as such, but if there is anyone who might be in the audience who had submitted any comments, or anyone else who would have an interest in this application, whether for or against, now's your chance to come forward and be heard by the committee. Okay, I don't know whether it's because it's getting late and we're losing people, or, okay, so we don't have anyone else at this point who wants to speak to the committee. So before we go to a vote, Mr. Christopher, any final words?
No, thank you.
All right. Okay, in that case, Mr. White.
I don't think we've discussed that issue with respect to the garage setbacks. I'm taking that we are proceeding on the basis of the application, and that we are regarding the encroachment with respect to garage as being legal non-conforming on the basis that the permit was issued prior to the bylaw change that created that issue. Is that correct?
That was my understanding. Anybody have anything different? I think that's, yeah, I think that's the point. We're going to go ahead just and deal with the minor variances that are before us.
Thank you. I just wanted to get that clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. All right. In that case, going to a vote. Members, all those in favor of the minor variance application? All right. For the record, the application is unanimously granted by the committee. And I don't think there's anything further for us to talk about. So thank you very much for hanging in there with us, Mr. Christopher.
Thank you, Madam Chair and panel.
All right. Have a great evening. Okay. So we are now on to application number 14. So on 14, we've got 67 Roslyn Avenue. And I guess trying to be sure I'm calling the right agent at this point. Mr. Kelly, Jeffrey Kelly.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Hey, yes, good evening. Before we get started, here we go. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that the sign was clearly visible and legible for the entirety of that time? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I do swear that to be true.
All right, thank you. Okay, and with that then, I believe we're removing some minor variances from your application, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so for the record, and I'm going to look for confirmation from you, Mr. Kelly. We are striking variance B regarding the increased distance to the principal entrance. We are striking variance C to permit a reduced rear yard setback, leaving us with only one minor variance as part of the application, which is A, to permit a reduced lot area. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And we're removing those because you have submitted a revised site plan that meets all of these conditions.
That is correct.
Okay. And I don't have any housekeeping changes for you on your application. So questions from the committee? Anybody? No? All right, that said then, we can go to the public portion on this application. And in this case, you are aware that we received, I think, from the Community Association, a letter of support. Is this the one that we did get the letter of support on? Thank you. All right, and we do have on our list Ms. Wilson and Ms. Pratt from the Community Association.
Hi.
Good evening.
I'm gonna speak tonight. Jill's here, but it's short what we have to say, so I'll do the speaking. Good evening, Madam Chair and committee members. The City View Community Association would like to submit our comments for the proposed new build at 57 Rossland Avenue. The four tests. The City View Community Association has no issues with this application. We consider this variance to be minor. This proposal is in keeping with the dominant character of the street and maintains the general intent and purpose of the official plan. The massing and building heights are compatible development and appropriate for the area. This, in our opinion, is a true example of a minor variance that should be reviewed and approved by this committee. We stand by our position that many of the applications for variances in City View that are coming before this committee are not minor in nature and should not be heard at this forum. This one is good, and we welcome these people into the neighborhood with the 65-foot lot, and everything is good. The trees. We have had a chance to review the tree report and acknowledge that 4 out of 5 living trees will be retained. We are in agreement that tree A should be saved, but it's been changed now so that that tree will be taken down and a new tree will be put up. So that's fine. We are concerned that a lot that has a smaller footprint and almost fully conforms with our bylaws is singled out for a tree infraction, while the monster houses are allowed to remove multiple trees due to their construction footprints. Why are these large footprints not challenged with regards to the tree canopy? If you do it for one, be consistent and do it for all. And then the infrastructure. In recent discussions with the City of Ottawa, we were advised that ditches and culverts under the driveways are a requirement of construction. In the submitted plans, there is a drainage plan. It shows a sump pit, which appears to run into an 8-inch concrete sewer. There is also a drainage ditch. Is there a storm sewer on Rossland Avenue, and is this a new system as noted in the plans? If not, will the sump be draining into the sanitary sewer and not the ditch? We would like the city to confirm this with us. This question was sent to committee and the city on November 17th and has not yet been answered. So we'd just like to get an answer on that. It's nothing, we're not complaining about the build or anything like that, but we'd like to have a answer on that sewer.
All right. So thank you, Ms. Wilson. We'll see if we can't get an answer from you.
Okay, and before I go, I just want to say Merry Christmas to everybody and Happy New Year, because we won't be back until after that.
Exactly. Thank you very much. And the same to you. Happy holidays to you and your family, you, Ms. Pront. And thank you for your ongoing engagement with the committee on these applications. We truly do appreciate your effort and your dedication. So with that, then, looking for an answer on some of these. Ms. Ramirez, are you able to help us here?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can, based on Geo Ottawa, there's no storm sewer in front of the property.
There's no storm sewer in front of this particular property? Is that what you're saying?
Sorry, I had a hard time.
So are you saying there's no storm sewer in front of this property?
Yes, that is correct. There's no like pipe. There's no pipe showing up in the Geo Ottawa data.
Right. Mr. Kelly, how much do you know about this property?
I spoke with my client earlier today and just got a brief update on his understanding of the proposed servicing. That is correct, that there is no storm service pipe in the street on Rossland Avenue. The sump pump will drain into a ditch that is currently existing abutting Rossland Avenue. And there's also an existing culvert that's attached to the neighboring properties. So that's the extent of the information that I have available tonight for you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kelly. So, okay. Not sure how to do follow up on this. Mr. White, maybe you can help us.
Madam Chair, I'm not an engineer and I don't want to venture into that, but I certainly think that the Community Association deserves to have some more comprehensive responses to these questions with respect to servicing in this area. It seems to me that this question keeps coming up and there never seems to be an adequate answer. I think there needs to be some more upfront information provided with respect to the capacities of services in the City View area, because it's been a problem for many years. It's been an issue with the community for many years.
You're reminding me here of the discussion that we had just last week with planning staff about exactly this kind of issue. So Ms. Wilson and Ms. Pratt, just so that you know, we did have a chance to talk about infrastructure deficiencies in neighborhoods where intensification was being promoted in some ways and occurring as a result of that. And what we heard from staff is that they are launching what's called the Infrastructure Master Plan. Correct me if I'm wrong, panel members. I think it's Mr. Rogers, a staff person with planning, or maybe it's just, I don't know whether it's under the planning group or the public works group, but they will be launching that review very shortly. And we and Mr. White, I think you and I both made the point that it's important for the community associations to be brought into that discussion. And we were thinking in particular the City View in this case. So that may not give you an answer right now, Ms. Wilson. And I'm really hoping we can maybe get Ms. Ramirez. I don't know if you can chase some of that information and get back to the community association on their question from November. But do know that that's coming. The Infrastructure Master Plan review, I think it's actually in the process of really just developing its approach. So we'll try and keep you posted on that as much as we can, so that you have the opportunity to get involved.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, great. Anything else then? Mr. White, your hand's up? Yeah, all right. Just wasn't sure if it was from before.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have some questions, actually some concerns about us even having to deal with this application. And I did a little bit of research subsequent to some work that I did when this was previously before us and was adjourned. This application, this lot was created as a result of consents, lot line adjustments, and minor variances. A minor variance that was obviously granted back in I think it was in the 1990s by the former city of Nepean, and the lot was created as a legal lot conforming by way of the minor variance. I have a hard time understanding, although I do recognize that the bylaw now is a wording that sort of explains why we're here. I have a hard time understanding why the bylaw itself renders lots of this nature, and there are a lot of them, because I do recall dealing with a lot of them in City View and in other areas of the city of Ottawa, that are essentially rendered non-conforming by the provision of the bylaw, and it's section 3 sub 4, which the initial wording of it is very consistent with bylaws that I've seen in the past, that it essentially recognizes lots of record that exist, notwithstanding, and are eligible to be developed, notwithstanding that they may not meet lot frontage or lot area requirements. This was a lot that's been around for a number of years now, and obviously was probably conveyed in a transaction after it was created by the former city of Nepean Committee of Adjustment. I'd like to know the explanation, some explanation of the planning rationale behind that section of the zoning bylaw that does render these lots non-conforming and essentially makes them unbuildable without the kind of approval of the kind of application that we're being asked to deal with tonight. The provision does acknowledge legal lots of record, but only with respect to those in the rural area by subsection 3 of that provision in the bylaw. It only recognizes rural lots and village lots that were created. And I'm wondering what the rationale is for exempting urban lots such as we have here, which quite frankly, I think creates a problem when they're subject to a conveyance that really means that they're being conveyed as illegal, illegitimate building lots. There's a lot of those around. Can I get could I get an explanation of the planning rationale behind this?
So, Ms. Ramirez, do you need the provisions stated again? Like, so Mr. White, you had mentioned exactly which provisions of the bylaw. Just want to make sure that Ms. Ramirez may have caught that reference.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do know which provision Member White is speaking to. It's Section 3 of the zoning bylaw, and I can't say why the rural lots in the rural area were included for not needing a minor variance for lot areas that were existing in certain zones. I don't understand the rationale there. I know what our bylaw says, and I know that we have been caught in a few situations where urban lots need to go for minor variances because there was never a use established in the form of a detached dwelling on the lot or another permitted dwelling. And so if there had been a dwelling that had been established on the spot, then we wouldn't be here. But there was no building that was built, and so that's why we're here. I don't know the rationale for only permitting rural lots to not require a minor variance. I can certainly follow up with policy staff, but I don't know the rationale.
Madam Chair, I'm quite concerned about this because there's a lot of these urban lots that have been created by, certainly I was involved in a lot of them myself in the PIA, but I'm sure there's more across the entire city where people are transacting in real estate transactions, conveying these properties, not realizing that they're not developable without a minor variance being granted. And I'm concerned what would happen in the case even this one, if it weren't to be granted, essentially the owner has a lot that he cannot develop. So I really would like to get an explanation of the rationale behind the wording of this provision of the bylaw.
All right, I do share your concerns about what happens if it's not approved, because at the end of the day, that's there's nothing good about that.
And it was legitimately approved by the former municipality as a developable, buildable lot. So
exactly.
Need an explanation of that. In addition, if I could just make a couple of comments, I appreciate the position of the community association. Ms. Wilson, I think she stated it very well, that this is a lot that represents what I consider to be some reasonable intensification. It reflects the way that the policies and the official plan and the zoning bylaw were interpreted back in the 1990s and prior to that. There's been no changes to the zoning bylaw since that time. Clearly, community association is on side with the kind of infill development that was permitted by those earlier approvals. And I agree with their position that most of the ones that we've been dealing with recently do not follow that sort of logic or rationale for orderly development in the neighborhood. So I agree completely with the statements that Ms. Wilson has provided in her submission. That's all. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. White. That's a couple of thoughts then about the comments that you raised. One is, yes, we should pursue with staff that planning rationale that you're looking for. Don't think we need to, I think we can do that separately. Maybe just have Mr. Belmar chase some of that information for us through the planning department. I don't know who they're going to want to assign it. They may want to assign it to the individual who's now tasked with launching the zoning bylaw review, which of course is a great opportunity to clean up some of these real red herrings, or more than red herrings, is real contradictions in the bylaw from what I think was the original intent of other things that occurred. So anything else then before we go to, so we heard from the people on our speakers list. Did I make a call out for anyone else who might have an interest in the application, either for or against? Don't think, okay, so I'm not seeing anybody else come forward. Mr. White, is your hand up again?
Yeah,
okay.
Sorry, Madam Chair, just something that I forgot to ask. I wanted to get some clarity on the tree situation and dealing with trees through the building permit process. I know that the tree issue has been identified in the planning report here, but it really sort of speaks to me, it's the negotiation, et cetera, following our decision. There's no conditions that are being recommended here, and I'm fine with that. But I just wonder how, in the situation where there's a desire to preserve trees, how that process ties in with the building permit process, and outside of our jurisdiction, the committee of adjustment. Perhaps the forester could help us out with that one.
All right, Ms. Young, good.
Hi, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. Trying to think of how to address this. So the reason that the tree issue came up initially is, I guess, related to the driveway and sort of the placement of the house on the lot, or the arrangement of the house on the lot. So we were hoping to deal with it through this stage. They will need a permit for removal of the tree. So that will go through at the building permit stage. So we're just trying to kind of get it on both fronts, I guess. If there were any changes that could be made at this stage to retain the tree, which we had originally thought was retainable, then we wanted to deal with it now. Through this exercise, we've come to understand that the tree is in poor condition and not worth making changes to the house or the arrangement of things on the property. So it didn't really need to be dealt with here, but we wanted to clarify everything as part of this process. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. My concern here is that we're not dealing with the building envelope. I mean, the applicant did submit some building plans, but quite frankly, I don't believe that was required to be, any of that was required to be submitted to deal with the minor variance for a lot area provision. I don't really believe that we required that to be submitted as part of the application in this case. So that being the case, obviously, if you're going to deal with trees without the benefit of being able to do anything through the committee of adjustment, there has to be some kind of a way to deal with that through the building permit process. And am I correct in assuming that there's a formal approach to dealing with trees through the building permit process where a committee of adjustment approval is not required?
Yes, so there is certainly a way of dealing with this just through the building permit process, but where there is a committee application, then the preference is to deal with it earlier in case there is a way of making the changes. And sometimes these tree issues, even where a minor variance is just for a lot width or lot area, sometimes the changes that we need to be made to deal with trees, they might require further minor variances or other changes. So that's why we raise it at this time. But if it is a file that does not have a committee of adjustment need, then there is certainly a way of dealing with it through just building permit.
Thank you.
All right, thank you for that explanation, Ms. Young. Any other questions about this? And on the tree thing, Mr. White, I think you'll agree with me. We're still learning about how this process really works, and what our expectations are in some ways. So I'm, again, I think it might be worthwhile reopening some discussion with forestry staff about and planning staff about how they do the review of applications when it really is lot area and lot width. So is there a bit of a threshold there in terms of type of minor variance? I don't know, but it would be a good discussion to have. Anything else? Ms. Wilson, I see your hand is up.
Yes, all I wanted to say is that we understood that the adjournment last time was because of that tree that was in the driveway area. So the city went back and met with them and discovered through a new tree information report that that tree wasn't worth saving anyway. So they'll put another tree in its place on the other side. But and we weren't going to mention this, but when they do that, the tree information report that was put out originally, was that not good enough that they had to come back and then say, oh no, this tree is not good? Like, that's what we don't understand, because that original tree report should have said that, and then there shouldn't have been an adjournment, and then we wouldn't all be sitting here at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night doing this, because that takes a lot of dollars to run this whole thing. So it's just, when they're doing things with trees, those tree information reports, they should be able to rely on those. And we shouldn't have had to come back for this, we don't think. Anyway, that's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. I think we made a call out. There was no one else. So I think are we at the point of a decision on this? I think we are. I think we are at that point. Okay. With that, then we're looking at a minor variance, one variance in this application. So any last words, Mr. Kelly, before we go to a vote?
No words, thanks.
All right. So all those in favor then of the application? All right. For the record, the application is unanimously granted. And I think that pretty much is it. I don't think there's anything else to really go over, Mr. Kelly.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay.
Madam Chair, I'm just going to interrupt here for a minute.
Yes.
It seems that we missed the stat deck for item number 2. And we actually have the agent, Mr. Wager, on the call. If we'll promote him and maybe we can read the oath now.
Oh, let's do that. Yes, I'm very glad that that's the case. Not sure. I have to ask Mr. Wager why he's still on, or did he come back?
He realized and came back.
I came back, Madam Chair.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much for doing that. And I apologize for having forgotten this. We're in such a roll with the adjournments, and you don't need to do it on the adjournments. So
no, that's fine. You and I both.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted at the property to which the application applies for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times clearly visible and legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I affirm.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Mr. Wager, for coming back and doing this portion with us.
Thank you for accommodating.
All right. Good night.
Bye now.
Okay. All right, folks. We're down to our last applications for the evening. We have combined consent of minor variance, number 12 and 13. And it is for 1561 Menaki Avenue, or 845 Melfa Crescent. And on this application, the agent that we're looking for is it Mr. Anthony Johnston? Mr. Johnston, I see your name.
Good evening.
Good evening. All right, let me read this to you before I forget. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the notice provided to you as part of the application process and by the committee was posted on the subject property to which the application applies, that it was there for the prescribed number of days prior to the hearing, and that it was at all times clearly visible or legible? Do you either swear or affirm that to be true?
I swear it to be true.
All right, thank you. With that, then, I believe in this case, we are looking for a presentation from you.
We are?
But before we go there, just give me a moment, because there's a number of changes that we need to acknowledge on the notice. So for example, we're looking at deleting, and I understand that you've had further discussions with staff, and it's the result of further discussions with staff and a revised plan that allows us to delete some of the minor variances that were on the application. So for example, we are deleting minor variance B and F relating to building height, correct?
Correct.
And we are deleting variance D relating to the interior side yard setback?
Correct.
Okay, that leaves us with A, C, and E. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, in that case, I think we've got everything. And so, yes, we are looking for a presentation. Ms. Cully, I see that your hand is up. Oh, and I think there's one more.
It's through you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to raise the point that the rear yard setback had changed from the public notice.
Thank you. I just noticed that. I thought, thank you very much. So E then is to permit a rear yard setback of, we're striking 4.3 and replacing it with 4.79 meters, and we're striking 20% and replacing it with 22%. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you. With that then, I think we can go on to a presentation at this point.
Are we able to pull up the site plan? All right, so as we all know, this is an application to sever a single lot into two single lots. To accommodate this, we are requesting minor variances for lot frontage on parts 1 and parts 2, and also minor variances for rear lot setback for part 2. So we've revised the elevations to essentially remove the original request to have relief for building heights. Here you can see the revised elevations for part 2. You can see that we're well within the 8-meter requirement. Very similar situation for part 1. I think originally the residents were concerned with a 3-story above the garage, which was originally a request to increase the building height to 9.1 meters. Now we've revised the elevations to essentially have it as just a regular 2-story house, again, within the 8-meter zoning requirement for building height. Yeah, I mean, here you can see sort of an aerial footage of the site plan as it currently sits. You know, we're in the corner there and there's a lot of trees. Residents have brought up concerns with cutting down some of these trees. Yeah, I'm not sure what else to say, to be honest.
Well, did you want to provide planning evidence of, against the 4 tests for these minor variances? And the other thing you might want to do, Mr. Johnson, is given the extent of letters of opposition that the committee has received, you may want to tell us a little bit about your consultation process.
So we did the initial public circulation and received city staff comments and public concerns. Based on this, the original site plan was amended and resubmitted. The hearing was adjourned for 30 days to give city staff and public residents more time to review the revised site plan. The synopsis of the application was revised by city staff, and I feel it does a good job in summarizing the minor variance requests and how they relate with the old and new official plan. We've done our best to eliminate multiple concerns originally brought up by city staff and the neighborhooding residents by removing multiple minor variances from the original application.
Okay. Questions from the committee members on this? No one with any questions? Mr. Johnson? Yes, Mr. White?
With respect to the planning rationale, there was a submission dated July 26, 2021, which provided the rationale. I don't know if you would like the applicant to expand on that, but it does address the Planning Act tests.
It seems to me though, Mr. White, that that would be the subject of your presentation, right? It seemed to me.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I wasn't aware that I'd have to be presenting since it was a second revision to the site plan.
Well, generally speaking, it's only since we've been online that we're not asking for presentations every time. But the reality is, if we were back in council chambers, the default would be you do a presentation unless we tell you that you don't need to do one. For so sure. Just for your future reference, if that's helpful. Okay, so I think, all right. If there's no other questions, yes, Ms. Willis, please.
Looking at the planning report, there's a concern that remains about trees. And I actually, seeing this proposal and the way that you've dealt with, the applicant has dealt with some of the revisions, the siting of the lot of the houses on the lots, I think is good form of intensification, but I just would like to hear from the applicant what efforts have been made to preserve trees. And reading the staff report, they think that tree number 1, the removal of it is avoidable. And I'd just like to have you explain a little bit, maybe from staff, how it could be avoided, and from you, the applicant, why it can't be avoided.
Yeah, so I think tree number 1, it's important to note that the critical root zone for it is 17.5 meters, which represents a significant portion of the total lot area for part 2. Right? We understand the new official plan provides strong direction to maintain the urban forest canopy, yet we strongly disagree that a 3% reduction in the rear yard setback directly impacts tree number 1, given the fact that the critical root zone is 17.5 meters.
Could you, excuse me, could you put up, do you have something in your presentation we can look at it to see what exactly you're talking about?
Yeah, if we can just pull up the site plan. So that tree is identified as being 1.2 meters. And in the tree information report, they identified the critical root zone to be 17.5 meters. So just to put this into context, to allow for safe retention of tree number 1, the building face would have to be set back approximately 10 meters from the rear lot line, which is 46% of the lot depth. So we don't really believe that this is the intent of section 4.8.2 of that initial plan, right? Like, I just don't see how the recommended removal of tree number 1 is avoidable given that critical root zone of 17.5 meters.
Could we ask, Madam Chair, could we ask our forest, Ms. Young, to address this?
I agree, Ms. Young. Yeah, Ms. Young,
yes.
Can you, thank you.
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. I actually disagree with the evaluation of the size of the critical root zone of this tree. It's a multi-stem tree, so it's a single tree made up of, it sounds like 5 different stems growing together. So it sounds like the arborist added those together and estimated the critical root zone from that. I do not agree that that's the proper way to assess that protection area. And I think it would be helpful to have the arborist reassess that and look at how close the development could be to this tree. I feel like it could be much closer, and possibly even just where the as of right building envelope is. So my only opposition here is really to the requested reduction in rear yard setback. I feel like it would be doable, but we would need that assessment from the arborist.
Follow-on questions, Ms. Willis?
So to get another assessment from the arborist, it couldn't be done would require an adjournment of this application to give you time to do it?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Markovich, your hand was up. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. A sort of related question, is that the city's position? Is it requesting an adjournment so that there's this other assessment that can take place, or just wanted to clarify that?
Ms. Cully?
Through you, Madam Chair, the city did not request adjournment, but we brought that to the attention so that it could be a part of the discussion. I'm not sure if that clarifies.
Okay. All right, where does that leave us then? That leaves us with a difference of opinion, is where it leaves us. So in that case, I wish we did have that information. I wish we could get somebody to give us some sense. Ms. Willis, if you've got...
Sorry, I just, I don't have a solution here. It's not clear to me, my aging eyes, even from the look on the plan that was put up on the screen, which one is tree number 1? I apologize. I didn't look it up in advance and I just can't tell from the plan that's in front of me. And I'm trying to ascertain whether or not, if there was an adjournment, and if it turns out that Ms. Young is correct and it can be a much reduced root system area, that no matter what, that would require a revision to the siting of the house in order to save the tree.
Okay,
so which one is tree number 1?
That one, the rear yard. Okay.
So again, just is it Ms. Young's opinion that if the arborist agrees, or if she agrees with the arborist, if the root zone can be reduced, does that then require a revision to this plan in order to save that tree?
Yeah.
Through you, Madam Chair, it might. So that would be helpful to have that information. And I'm not sure if that can be dealt with through a condition on here, if that would help to not adjourn this file, but I can't answer right now if simply not approving the requested rear yard setback reduction would be enough, or if they can look, if it would be necessary to actually push that building forward a little bit to retain that tree.
And just another follow-up, is it also possible that there could be some sort of, I don't know, protection measures that could be implemented to protect the tree such that the building might not have to be moved?
Yes. Yeah, that is absolutely a possibility.
We don't have that condition before us. That
no, we don't. I'm just trying to see what might happen down the road. Unless we.
Well, we can take a stab at a condition. I mean, we can always add one, and that says something to the effect that to the satisfaction of the city's forestry services, mitigation measures to protect the critical root zone to the extent possible will be undertaken, and the clearing of the condition. Well, this is what you got to think about is how do you clear that condition? That it's got to be that they demonstrate either the inability to do it, or they revise, or they implement the mitigation measures. So either they undertake a study. Ms. Young, can you help us out here? So what would you need if we were to write a condition to do that?
Well, I'm just wondering if the condition that I have in there right now does kind of address it. So I've asked to provide a revised site plan and TIR to the satisfaction of the GM. The report will be prepared by an arborist identifying trees protected and including specific mitigation measures where work is proposed within the critical root zone. I think it does talk to taking securities for the protection of that tree as well, just tree number 1. So it kind of addresses it. I could look at strengthening the wording of the, like what we need in the revised site plan and tree plan, if that would work.
I'm just trying to, I'm reading them here. Would we want something, I don't see the mitigation, like I'm looking, it's number 12, right? Condition number 12 that you're referring to, Ms. Young?
I believe so. I don't have the actual number in front of me. The report.
Sure, yes, it is number 12.
Including specific mitigation measures where work is proposed. All right. Ms. Willis, what do you think?
Madam Chair, sort of where I'm going with this is not very eloquently, I apologize, is that if it turns out that rather than having a rear yard variance, they push the whole house forward and have a front yard variance by the same amount or something similar, which allows an increase in separation from the tree to the footprint of the building, that might solve everybody's problem, and it wouldn't reduce any, change anything to the actual design of the house. It just means a front yard variance instead of a rear yard variance. And we probably wouldn't know that until Ms. Young has had an opportunity to look at the, whether or not there would be a good chance at leaving the building as proposed and save the tree. That would, of course, require a delay, but it might solve everybody's problem.
Well, it'd be a delay, and it might even be recirculation of the application.
Yeah.
It would. It would.
Okay. All right. Where do we want to go with this? Because we have a number of speakers on this. So if we decide we want to adjourn this application, better, I think, in fairness. People have been waiting. So, Mr. White, go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'm inclined to suggest that the existing condition that's been cited, number 12, if we beef that up somewhat to make every effort reasonably possible to preserve that tree, that it should be, we should pursue that.
Well, I get the sense that it has the wording to do that already in it. Unless, Ms. Young, you've got a suggestion that may strengthen the wording, like kind of looking to you here for some guidance if that's the case.
I don't have anything off the top of my head right now. I can think about this as we go through speakers, if you like.
All right, well, I guess before we go to the speakers, though, I just need to get a sense from the other members. do we adjourn this and allow for that more fulsome discussion, or do we look at just ensuring that we have the conditions necessary to really deal with the concern? Ms. Margovich, looking for your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I was sort of the opinion that an adjournment might be the way forward, but I'm sort of rethinking this in my mind now.
I was looking, I guess maybe I'm not speaking loudly enough anymore. Mr. White?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I ask the minor variance E with respect to the rear yard just indicates reduced rear yard setback of 4.79 or 22%. Can someone tell me what the 25% bylaw requirement dimension is? I can't do the math myself.
That's like 5.0. It's got to be close to 5.0 if 22% is.
Can't do math anymore.
5.17. 5.17.
9.17?
5.17.
5.17.
I'd be satisfied that that's a minor variance, but
it's a 3% reduction.
Yeah.
While we still do maintain the 25% lot area requirement, right? Which I think is the key intent for that bylaw.
All right, I think what we're going to do then, if everyone's in agreement, is we're going to give Ms. Young some time to think about how we might massage the conditions with regards to the tree, and we'll hear from the public and go from there. Okay, I see people agreeing with me on that. So that given, we're just need to find. Okay, so the names I have 3 names on my list. I'm going to start with the one at the top, Mr. Morwood.
Good evening, Madam Chair.
Good evening.
So I'll start off and I'll talk about the severance of the lot. And I'll say that the existing lot is less than 3% larger than the minimum lot area and has an irregular shape, making it a poor candidate for severance. Both the adjacent lots and the subject property are severed from the original 1561 Menaki lot. So this is no surprise. The city's planner's report for the previous hearing stated, however, the shape of the proposed parcel results in the need for several minor variances, which brings into question the suitability of the land for the purpose of constructing 2 detached dwellings. But it's interesting to note that wasn't in the most recent report. I'm not sure why. The most significant variances associated with the severance are the lot widths, and they haven't changed. The corner lot provision does not state a minimum lot size before or after the severance. However, other zoning bylaw conditions still apply, and in fact, they become more relevant and critical when ensuring that the resulting development is compatible with the neighborhood. The minimum lot width. The planner's report states that there are 2 undersized minimum lots within the neighborhood. One is 17.22 meters, which is in fact a minor variance. And the other one at 861 Menaki is 16.4 meters across the street from the subject lot. Looking at the Appendix B, if you have that available for my document. No? Okay. We see that the technical world of the planning, that the lot width may be 6.4 meters, but Looking at Appendix C, common sense from the lay observer tells us that the width of the lot where the front of the house is located, that which is the most important for the compatibility of the neighborhood, is in fact over 36 meters, well above the minimum in the area. Clearly, for determining compatibility with the neighborhood, for determining the predominant character of the street, this is the value which should be used to determine that lot width. And there becomes effectively no exceptions to the minimum lot width in the neighborhood. 16 meters is merely a technical artifact. And about 12 years ago, 861 Menaki, this is the lot that was identified as having a small lot width, was divided, and the frontage became the side when that was divided. But if you take a look at the, so it's interesting that a legitimate and well done division was, or subdivision of the lots is now being used as somewhat of a justification of reduced lot widths in the neighborhood, which is terrible. The planner's report says that the average lot width in the neighborhood is over 23 meters. And as stated above, there is effectively no lots observably below the minimum lot widths. We see the requested lot widths of 16.6 and 15.8 are entirely outside of the range of the predominant character of the street. But further, looking at Appendix B, the lay observer is going to notice that due to the irregular shape of the lot, the actual minimum lot width for Part 2 parcel is the frontage. That's not the term that planners use for minimum lot width. It's the minimum width of the lot is actually 14.6 meters. And in fact, the width at the street is about 12.8 meters. Again, for the non-planner, for the actual compatibility and fitting into the predominant character of the street, these smaller values are what are naturally observed. In summary, there are no lots in the area under 652 meters squared, the minimum for R1GG. And for the purpose of compatibility and predominant character, the average of the lot width is over 23 meters, and there's effectively no exceptions to the minimum lot width in the neighborhood. Under this context, the severance is clearly not fit into the predominant character of the neighborhood. And in fact, the lot width variances become, in my opinion, something which are not minor in nature. I would say that this is probably quite similar to 70 Granton, which you reviewed in October 20 hearing and you said no to. Also notice that the 861 lot that was used to help justify this has also got what I would say a frontage of over 36 meters, making it a fine candidate for the provisions of division. And that there's no problem with that. Anyways, to sum all this up, a kindergartner looking at the neighborhood plans or if the request, or if the request gets approved, walking through the neighborhood, playing the Sesame Street game of which item doesn't belong here, is going to be able to identify these houses as being totally out of character for the neighborhood. Another issue that I have is the effect of the density and the water management. The density of the development is out of character for the neighborhood. Every other lot has a reasonable sized yard. This density becomes an even greater issue when considering water management. With more house and more driveway and much less yard, there is much less area for the water to be absorbed. This issue gets compounded by the proposed removal of several mature trees, which would otherwise absorb vast amount of water. Each year during the snow melt, there is standing water on the existing 1561 Menaki lot, particularly in the east side of the lot near my house. With the existing water issue, less water absorbing through the reduced yard area and reduced number of mature trees and raised elevation that is on part of the plans, the water will likely end up in the neighbors' yards, that's mine, which are already saturated. About 12 years ago, the 1550 Menaki lot down the street was severed, 2 dwellings built at a raised elevation, presumably with a water management plan, but it still resulted in 1554 Menaki becoming flooded. It took well over a year of pushing by the 1554 Menaki property owner to have the issue remediated. How will this be prevented? While looking at that, I also noted that that the tree report, tree number 11, a mature tree which is scheduled to come down, is listed as a silver maple, while it is in fact a birch tree. If you want to take a look, you can look at its street view. You can clearly see that it's a birch, Google Street View. Private lot area. The amenity area is required to be placed on the site plan only for the proposed Part 1 parcel and not for the Part 2 parcel, as it's not a corner lot. So that amenities area is listed because the division of the corner lot provisions require it. And it's interesting because despite being not on the corner, parcel 2 still seems to be eligible for the reduced corner lot setback that pushes both of these houses way out into the streets. Anyways, getting back to my point about the amenity area, why is the amenity area required for the Part 1 parcel to be on the site plan? Well, I think about it and I think it's because it's supposed to be probably the most difficult area or yard to put a reasonable amenity area. The proposed site plan does not show the amenity area is bisected by the average front yard setback of the abutting lots. This places about half of the amenity area in what is essentially the front yard area of the abutting lots. This is not a reasonable place for a private yard area. Even if this area were to be hidden with a big ugly privacy fence, the conversations and the smoke from cigarettes, marijuana, and briskets of those using the amenity area would still be conspicuous. Every other lot in the neighborhood has place for a reasonably located and private lot area. Note that the amenity area being aligned with the abutting lot's front yard is due to both the irregular shape of the lot and the variance requested for the minimum lot width. If not for this variance, the amenity area would be at least a meter further from Monackey Avenue. As stated, Part 2 parcel does not require an amenity area be documented on the site plan. Without being forced to document such an area, the applicant has chosen to request a rear yard setback variance, which would not even allow for the amenity area of the depth of the Part 1 parcel that they put on the site plan. This lack of area for a comparably shaped amenity area is part due to the rear yard setback variance and the lot shape, I suppose. Every other lot.
Mr. Morwood, I just want to say,
size private lot.
I just wanted to give you a 2-minute warning because generally speaking, we give like 5 minutes, but I'll give you another couple minutes to wrap up.
In closing, there's nothing special about the 1561 Monackey Avenue, which merits having many minor variances approved, which will ultimately lead to the development that is uncharacteristic of the neighborhood, undesirable, and which goes against the intentions of the zoning bylaw and the official plan. I think that the official plan and the zoning bylaw specifically state the things like the rear setback and the amenity area being documented to identify that there's a private area, and it goes against that. The proposed offer a redevelopment intensification that does not fit well into the neighborhood, and the requested variances are, from a public interest point of view, not desirable for the appropriate use of the land. The proposal does not respect the predominant character of the neighborhood. The requested variants do not maintain the intent and purpose of the official plan. The requested variants do not maintain the general intent and purpose of the zoning bylaw because the proposal does not respect orderly development on the property that's compatible with the neighborhood. Moreover, the requested variances are not minor, in my opinion, because they create an unacceptable adverse impact on the abutting properties and the neighborhood in general. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you, Mr. Morwood. Mr. Johnson, so Mr. Morwood has raised a number of valid concerns. Do you have a lotting fabric, like some sort of lotting fabric evidence that that demonstrates that these lots fit into its context?
Well, they conform with the the bylaw requirements for front yard and corner yard setback, right? So
I'm looking specifically for some planning evidence that shows lotting fabric in the area. Do you have that?
No.
Okay. All right. Anything else? Okay, I guess what I'll do then, any questions for Mr. Morwood? from the members of the panel? All right, I'm going to go on to the next speaker then. It's Ms. or Mrs. Boutros. Good evening. Oh,
Good
and I
evening.
see you're with, okay, so you're with Mr. Leclerc. So, okay.
Yes.
It didn't say that you were speaking together. Oh, no, but it is the same address, so sorry about that. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Okay, good evening, thank you. Okay, so I'll just speak sort of more informally than my neighbor, but I thank him for raising very important points and echo a lot of what he said. So we're at 1555 Manaki, which is the property that directly abuts the proposal. And, you know, I just want to start by saying, look, like, you know, we understand and appreciate the objectives of the city plan and the need for intensification and things like that. And so I'm not gonna speak to the severance of the lots at all. But what I would like to talk about is the application to build these two new dwellings, and in particular on the variance that's being sought, which is the rear yard setback. That's the one in particular we're opposed to. So, you know, the reasons why we're opposed to this is for really because of privacy reasons, firstly, loss of open space. It affects our views, of course. And then I'm going to pick up on the tree issue that we all just, the panel really, I think, rightly discussed. And so I'll start with the loss of open space. And I think my neighbor really covered it well, Al, when he spoke about, you know, that proposal to put an amenity space that would really kind of essentially be in our front yard, being at 1555 Manaki, coming so close up to the property line there, proposing an amenity space. And also just the loss of privacy with respect to the trees too. So, and sorry, I'm just going to dig up my notes here. Okay, so I know that we don't really have any kind of right to sunlight or privacy or views or things like that. But what I think the committee might be interested in hearing is our thoughts around this sort of insensitive development that's being proposed. You know, like we don't feel like we're happy that some of the variances have been removed. So I appreciate that and noted that, you know, they have rescinded, I think, about 3 of them. So that's good. But overall, we just feel like, you know, it's just an insensitive development, right? It doesn't fit in with the characteristics of the neighborhood. In particular, it will, you know, really affect our privacy. And so noting too that in this era of COVID where we work from home, so like this is literally where we spend all of our day, you know, work from 9 to 5 at home, live at home with our 3 children. Where my office is at home is directly the closest part of our home to the proposal, and that's where they're proposing really to kind of to build and really, you know, kind of take away from our privacy. So we have 3 small children. We work from home. We're at home all the time. Privacy is important to us. And this will lead me to the point about the trees, because those trees are an essential source of privacy. You know, it's not much the case in the winter, of course, but in the summer and the spring when the trees are just blooming, it really provides a really nice sense of privacy. And so, you know, to the extent that we can save those trees, I think is really important, you know, and I'm glad the committee's looking into this. I'm glad that, you know, we're having this conversation. I really take Mrs. Young's point about the discrepancy between the critical root zone, and I think that needs to be further explored. I'd be fully supportive of an adjournment to allow for a more thorough studying of this with the arborist. I think that it's well worth it to try to save the trees if we can. I don't see any reason why delaying this further to save a few trees and preserve the integrity of the ecosystem, to help mitigate potential flooding, to help with the soil is not worth the wait, right? Like maybe I'm not looking at this properly, but I don't understand, like, you know, adjourning this committee so that we can have a more, you know, fulsome report about the trees. I don't see how that's a harm, because I think that it will really help in terms of the integrity of the proposal with the soil, with privacy, etc. So I'll put that out there. I have some concerns with using the existing condition number 12. And I'm just looking at this right now, but I think it would be nice to beef it up, but I don't think that it should be rushed. I think we should take time with the wording because, again, I did mention that there is a discrepancy with the critical root zone, according to what Anthony had said. I think he said it was like 17 and Mrs. Young said it was a different number. So I don't feel like we should be rushing this kind of decision at this point, and would really fully support an adjournment to have more time to think about the trees in the ecosystem. So I'll throw that out there, and then I think that was kind of it for me. So I'll just switch spots with Anthony. He's the co-owner. So.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, perfect. Good evening. I know it's late, but I want to take 5 minutes because I think it's important. So I want to go more towards the severance of the two lots. I want to look more at the context. I know you guys have numbers, minor variances, but I think the context in this specific situation is key. So could we put the pictures up, the visuals of the neighborhood?
Do you want the site plan? Is it the site plan you're looking for?
No, not the site plan. More the context, and more the trees or the neighborhood to really get the feel and the character. I think the pictures will really give us an insight of our neighborhood, because I'm assuming you guys see so many floor plans and measurements and all that kind of stuff. Perfect. So like Anthony Johnson mentioned, it's the property in the corner lot. So in this zoning area, the minimum square meters is 665. This property currently is 686. So they're just barely, passing the threshold of the minimum for this zoning area. So it was a shock to me when I heard that essentially they want to divide the lot. Because if you look at the lot, even before this development, it's the smallest one in the neighborhood, So when we heard that they were going to divide the sublot into two properties, we're like, how is that humanly possible? You know what I mean? But seems like there's an exemption or an exception that for a corner lot, it can go up to 49%. So I think it's important to note that these two lots are at 51%. So I get that if you're dividing a lot, let's say that's 1,000, and you divide it, it can make some relative sense. But in this context, when you divide it, they just both barely, are at 51%. And then you look, can you look at the other visual that's more out? So now when you look at the corner lot, and now you're saying, okay, we're going to divide into two, and then they relatively want to remove all the trees, and you want a relatively big two big properties. Then you obviously realize, that it's absolutely not within the feel or the neighborhood of the neighborhood. It's more purely for a development purposes. I think not for intensification, like my wife says. We believe, to promote urbanization and all that kind of stuff, but it has to be in a sensual way, that fits within the neighborhoods. Because we all pay, property taxes. And when we bought the house, there's relatively a quality of life and the reason why we bought this property. So I want to go specifically to tree number one, and we can see tree number one. It's that beautiful, probably the biggest tree in the area, between the two properties, the biggest tree. Yeah, right there. That is tree number one. It's gorgeous. It's huge. It's beautiful. It's really a signification and representation of Ottawa itself. You know what I mean? A lot of people, when they think of Ottawa, they really think how green it is, how beautiful it is. And I think it really, represents the trademark of Ottawa. So the idea that we're going to divide a lot, just barely 51% to make that 49% threshold for a corner lot. And at the same time, we're going to accept a minor variance to decrease the setback to help the developer destroy this tree at the expense of, our openness, the sunlight, privacy. I'm a little bit shocked and really. So I believe on the 4 test that the land itself, when it comes to severance, is not suitable for many reasons. The reasons Al pointed out and the reasons what my wife. I truly don't think that itself that it's not a good land to sever essentially. And yeah, so I'll leave it at that. But I want to go back to, when it comes to the tree and the setback, if the committee does believe that, the severance, is acceptable at the minimum, I think the tree and the idea that we're going to give them relief, I think is unacceptable. So thank you very much for your time.
All right, thank you very much for your comments. Any questions for either Ms. Boutros or Mr. Leclerc? Okay, all right, thank you. That was the end of my speakers list, but doesn't mean that others couldn't come forward. So let me just make a call out. Is there anyone in the audience who hasn't had a chance to speak, who would like to address the committee on this application, either for or against? Okay, not seeing anybody come forward. So committee, now's our chance to consider discussion on the tree and what we might be able to do about that. So I'm going to bring Ms. Young back, and we're going to turn our attention to condition number 12 again, and see if there's anything there that we can improve upon. Thoughts, Ms. Young?
Yeah, so what I had put together is to change the first part, to the owners agree to provide a revised site plan and tree information report showing how tree number 1 can be retained and protected. The report shall be prepared by an arborist, providing required setbacks to excavation and specific mitigation measures where work is proposed within the critical root zone of tree number 1. I'm not sure if that's strong enough. And I do want to note that I'm definitely opposed to the minor variance for the reduced rear yard setback. Like, that will for sure impact this tree. So I would be looking at this applying if that setback is not approved. Otherwise, I'm not sure exactly how.
I understand what you're saying. So can't have both, is what you're saying. you gotta get rid of that rear yard setback and use this. And now we're talking. Okay, I understand. Yes. Okay, thank you so much. Any questions from Ms. Young on that in particular, Mr. White? I thought maybe we'd finish up with this discussion. So is your question related to this?
Yes, if the proposed variance from the bylaw requirement is a concern, the as of right, if it goes to the as of right, whatever that is, 5 point whatever meters that number is that going to protect the tree? I mean, what improvement will that have upon protection of the tree? Is it going to be substantial? Is it going to be?
I was thinking the same thing, to be honest. It's a 3%. So is that really going to remove the impact of the tree, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. And there is, so I had done a calculation of the diameter for how the city measures multi-stem trees. And that would bring it to a diameter of 78 centimeters, rather than whatever the arborist was saying, which was probably 170 something to make a critical root zone of 17 meters. So there is a best management practice that excavation should be no closer than 3 times the diameter of a tree to not impact its stability. And so that calculation would be 2.5 meters from the tree. So I think that would be achievable somehow without the variance for the rear yard, but I do not have a measurement from the tree to the back, like to where that rear yard setback is. So I would need clarification of that. I think it's well within range of something that can be managed, but I do need that assessment from the arborist or from the applicant to know how far away that is.
Do we have that measurement? Mr. Johnson, can you provide us with that measurement?
Definitely. So what's the critical root zone according to Ms. Young?
It would, well, the critical root zone is 7.8 meters based on that, but the kind of the minimum limit to excavation is 2.5 meters.
So the center of the tree measured to the rear wall of the proposed building on part 2 measures at 3.28 meters.
Okay, so
as it is.
Okay, and so my calculation, that would be from the nearest edge of the tree and must include the excavation area, which would be outside of the foundation area. So to me, that's pretty tight to the 2.5 number, and I would want more than that. Like that is absolute bare minimum.
All right. So what if we did not approve the reduction in the rear yard setback? What do we gain? How much room do we gain? Do we gain enough? And well, we know how much we gain. So we heard 5.1 something, 7 point. So let's say 4.8, 5.1. We're talking about 0.3 of a meter. We're talking about a foot. That's what we're gaining.
0.87 of a meter is what I got in my calc.
So Ms. Young, I'm still worried that regardless, we're not protecting this tree.
So can somebody give me the total of what that is from the tree to whatever the setback would be? I wasn't following that.
So the required setback, where you wouldn't require any kind of variance, was 5.1 something. Mr. Johnson, you gave us that number.
5.17.
Sorry, my mistake. It's 5.37 based on the depth of 21.49 for part 2.
5.37.
5.37. Okay. So
yeah. 5.37
minus the 4.79, that's the difference.
4.79. 0.58.
Yeah, 0.58. So does 0.58 make a difference in, saving the tree, I think is the question, right?
Yeah. So that's the thing. So that would certainly help. So certainly not approving the rear yard setback would be important. But then that's where we would need the tree information report to say what is needed, what further mitigation is required. There are lots of solutions, such as like cantilevering out over foundations and things to pull the excavation further away. But we would need to understand that. And so in that regard, I don't know if it is better to adjourn and figure this out or try to kind of shoehorn this in through a condition.
All right. Thoughts from the committee, please, on this? Ms. Willis, you look like you have something to say.
Well, I'm not sure that so I was trying to say previously is that a way to deal with this is possibly to reduce the front yard setback to push the building even further forward. But I don't know whether that's going to be acceptable to the neighbors any more acceptable to the neighbors. So push it forward. You could maybe even push it further than the 0.58 of a meter and apply instead, if it was adjourned, for a front yard reduction and then save the tree. But in any case, that would require an adjournment. It gives everybody a chance to, gives Ms. Young a chance to review the tree report with the arborist, because they obviously have a difference of opinion. It gives the applicant a chance to decide whether he can do some architectural changes to the house, or whether pushing it forward would be better, or whether reducing the size of the house, all those things. But we seem to have a bunch of balls up in the air right now that are difficult to try to reconcile.
Yeah, and I'll be very honest with you folks. I'm still not sold that that the lot area, the reduced lot width is, yeah, I haven't heard enough evidence for myself to even be sure that I think that minor variance works for me. So A and C, for example. So there's lots of issues here. Okay, well, we can adjourn it. If Mr. Hindle, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think I honestly, I would personally actually kind of disagree. It sounds like with the proposed conditions, I think this issue about the tree is mitigatable or can be figured out over time. That isn't necessarily, as we talk about, you know, the foot or 3 feet of what the variance is potentially from its baseline. I tend to be of the opinion that it's fairly minor in that sense, and it sounds like there is a procedure that can be worked out with Ms. Young and the applicant to kind of get to the end of that. Personally, I don't know what at the end of the day an adjournment would really change at the end of the day, and I think I'm ready to vote in favor of this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Hindle. Mr. White, any comments?
I agree with Mr. Hindle with the expansion of that condition number 12 as suggested by our forester.
All right. I think we've lost Ms. Markovich as part of the discussion. Coordinators, can you confirm that, or did anybody get an email from Ms.? I just need to know whether or not she's back. She was here for most of the discussion. Will she be back for a decision?
Yeah. And she's having some significant issues getting back on, so I'm not sure she's coming back on this evening. She was dropped during some of the neighbors' presentations.
Oh, I see. Okay. With that, then, I would be tempted to move forward with this application this evening as well. So, Ms. Willis, if you're amenable to that, then let's go with Ms. Young's recommended wording as was read out. And so we can use the recording of the session tonight to be able to pull that out. Committee staff, I guess if you need some help with it, please do reach out to Ms. Young just to make sure just the right words are there, but that the intent has not changed, just that we have just clear wording on that. Mr. Johnson, your thoughts on the revisions to condition number 12?
Yeah, I'm in accordance. I agree.
You're in agreement?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we're amending, for the record, the condition number 12. Anything else to discuss? All right.
Just, Madam Chair, just for clarity, we're amending the condition, and also Ms. Young's recommendation was that would be accompanied by not approving the rear yard variance. Is that understood by all?
Good point. Good point. So yes, that makes sense that it goes hand in hand given the comments. Thoughts on that then? So are you in support of that one, Ms. Willis, if we were to remove that minor variance?
I have to think about that for a moment.
Right. Okay, Mr. Hindle.
I think I'm personally okay with approving it with the variance, honestly. A 50-foot lot in the city of Ottawa is huge, and I think it's such a minor change in this case, and it sounds like there are potential mitigating ways to mitigate the issue and the concern about the tree. So I'm okay with it as is.
All right. Right.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry I misunderstood the wording of the condition. I am going to be consistent with Mr. Hindle's position on this. If we can improve that condition number 12 with the maintenance of the minor variance as is applied for, I have no concerns.
And you would retain the reduced side yard setback?
Pardon me?
Would you retain
variance as
variance E?
applied? The variance as applied for.
As applied for. Okay, so no removal of E. Okay.
Correct.
All right. So with that, it's funny because I'm actually with Ms. Willis on this. I would be removing variance E.
Well, I haven't quite come to that conclusion, Madam Chair. I mean, I think the best solution would be to push the house forward, but if that's not an option, then I just would like to hear from Ms. Young what happens if they have to put securities on the tree, and if the mitigation measures don't work, what happens?
I was curious about that as well.
Yeah, good question. So through you, Madam Chair, if the mitigation options as recommended by the arborist don't work and the tree dies, then the city would retain the securities. If it's directly related to construction damage, if the tree dies for some other reason that we can ascertain, then that would be evaluated differently. But that's why we need to make sure that absolutely the arborist needs to be supportive of what the setback is and like where the excavation can actually be for the trees to survive. And I mean, my evaluation is based on numbers only. I have not been to the site. I have not evaluated this tree to know if there's anything else going on or signs of where the roots are. So it's a risk if the minor variance is approved. I mean, I guess the other thing is if we get the arborist report stating whatever it is that they state, and there are further minor variances needed to pull the excavation away, then that can be dealt with later.
That's sort of what I'm getting hung up on, is if the applicant's arborist can't agree that the tree can be saved under those circumstances, and we've approved it, we're sort of stuck, right?
Yeah, I mean, it can ultimately also be dealt with at the building permit stage, in that a permit for that tree will be refused. But then it kind of brings us back to how to build appropriately in there. And there may be other variances or other things required at that time.
Any follow-on questions, Ms. Willis?
I know it's not my turn to talk, but I'm curious about how the fact that this is an R1 GG zone that has all these specific things that makes it okay for the lot widths to be so small. I was hoping somebody could explain that to me.
So, Mr. Morwood, I'm sorry, the public portion of the hearing is done. We're really just trying to get to a point where we can make a decision at this point. And it's all about the protection of the tree. So, okay. All right, I think what we're voting on, folks, is minor variances as proposed, conditions as amended. So all those in favor of that, before we vote on the application, all those in favor of, all those in agreement with what we're voting on.
So it's I'm not clear. It's the revised conditions as proposed by Ms. Young, but unaccompanied by the turning down of the rear yard.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Is that what we're voting on? We got to be clear, right? This is it. So if we're voting on that, that's what we're voting on. Okay. I'm not seeing any no's. So, Mr. Johnson.
I was just going to mention too, like if it does come to find out that we can actually build to the required minors reduced rear yard, then you wouldn't be allowed to build to that anyway, right? Even though it's approved.
Sorry, I don't think I follow. I must have missed something.
Madam Chair, I just want to be clear. If I'm supporting the application on the basis that every effort possible will be made with the approval of the minor variances as they have been submitted. Every effort possible will be made to save that tree. However, if that's not possible, that's not possible, and the application is approved and the development proceeds on the basis of the variances that are applied for here.
Yeah, I think that's what we're left with. Absolutely. I got to tell you though, that tree, after seeing the aerial photograph, it's splendid. What a shame it would be to lose that tree. It's exactly what I think these tree bylaws and all of these new policies is trying to do. If we can't protect a tree like that, then, you know, it's almost like pack it up and go home. But I know, but and this is why we're trying so hard to actually find a way to protect that tree. Okay, sorry, Mr. Johnson, back to you, because I don't think I really followed your reasoning there a minute ago.
I retracted.
You're retracted.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So committee members, on the application for consent, the consent application is the one where we are modifying interestingly, so that's split, right? It's the consent application where we're modifying the condition. And it's the minor variance application that we've agreed to retain as is. Okay, so on the consent application with the revised condition number 12, all those in favor? Okay, for the record, I am dissenting on this. So 3 members, Mr. Hindle, Mr. White, and Ms. Willis are approving. I am dissenting on this because I do not believe that I received enough planning evidence to demonstrate that the lot widths required under this application have been duly justified. So in other words, I don't see it as being in keeping with the intent of the zoning bylaw at this particular point in time. Okay, on the minor variance, all those in favor? All right. And again, I'm dissenting on that one. And this time it's not to do with the zoning bylaw. It has to do that I don't think it's minor, given our new policies and objectives surrounding the tree. I'm concerned that we're not gonna get there. Okay, that's okay. All that to say though, Mr. Johnson, both applications are approved by the committee. So you have a number of conditions to clear as part of this application. I did not hear you raise any issues with regards to the conditions 1 to 11. So they're remaining intact?
Yes.
All right. With that, then I think that brings us to the end of this particular application and the hearing overall. So with that, I need a motion to adjourn. Mr. White, seconded by Mr. Hindle. And with that, before we go, I'd like to thank our planning staff, Ms. Ramirez, Ms. Cully, our forestry staff, Ms. Young, for all of your on the spot. It's not an easy job to come here and have to answer all of these questions right out of left field. So thank you so much for doing that. And again, thanks to our committee staff and our Secretary Treasurer for hanging in there until 10:13. So all I can say is it was good practice for January 12th. Anyway, have yourselves, well, I don't need to say happy holidays to you folks.